whether he's stand it. Don't know speaker whether he's going to stand. He's talking now, yeah. John Maguire. Thanks very much indeed there, John Maguire, with Steve Baker confirming his interest in standing for the leadership. I'm joined by Nick Irving, who's going to join in a moment. I just want to bring you the reaction from the leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer, who said on Twitter that the Conservatives have overseen 12 years of economic
Test. If anyone can hear this, just let us know in the comments. We're trying to do a test here. This, just let us know in the comments. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Leonardo Puglisi in the 6 News Studios in Melbourne. Quite an extraordinary evening. Boris Johnson, sorry, got some feedback there. Boris Johnson, the United Kingdom Prime Minister, is set to resign. We're hearing that on just about every major United Kingdom media outlet here, the BBC, ITV, Sky News, you name it. Boris Johnson is going to resign as UK Prime Minister. This follows 54 ministers, as you're seeing on the screen there, resigning or being sacked. Might I add, only one was sacked. So 54 have resigned. That is quite an extraordinary figure there. 53 rather, I should say. So what this means is we're going to have a new UK Prime Minister. Now, we don't know when Boris Johnson is going to speak. We heard only yesterday, maybe less than 24 hours ago, Boris Johnson was saying, I will not resign. Now he's resigning. This is a bit of a little dark age moment for the United Kingdom's government. Quite an extraordinary development, especially when you consider where we were only yesterday. You're watching a live feed outside 10 Downing Street right now, where Boris Johnson will obviously speak. But yeah, this has turned into quite an extraordinary story. It's not often we cover UK government and UK politics in this much depth, but now it's a worldwide moment. 53 ministers resigning, another one sacked. That's 54 gone. We've had probably dozens call for him to go, including the new Chancellor, appointed 36 hours ago, called for him to resign. Just after that, we heard Johnson would be resigning. Now, of course, Johnson will stay on as the new UK Prime Minister. He will, as the UK Prime Minister, I should say, rather. He will stay on until the Conservative Party there, the Tories, can decide on a new leader. But what this essentially means is he will no longer be the Prime Minister, of course. And we know there have been quite a few Conservative Prime Ministers recently in the United Kingdom. There was David Cameron, and then, of course, we had Theresa May. And I was live when Theresa May resigned back in 2019, when I was 11 years old. I was live on YouTube as Theresa May resigned. We're now live as Boris Johnson resigns. So this looks like the end for Boris Johnson's time as Prime Minister. I said that on Twitter yesterday. Now it's all but confirmed here, all but officially. Excuse me for that notification there. This is what happens when it's a working live stream. But this is it for Boris Johnson. This is it. 54 UK Prime Ministers gone. An extraordinary figure. Possibly, if not almost certainly, a record. And would love to hear your thoughts. If you have any questions, and I'm not a UK politics expert, but I know a bit about the news, let us know in the live chat. Right now, I am monitoring that live chat. Any questions, comments, feedback you have, let us know. If, by the way, the audio has any issues, please let us know too, because I can't hear myself back. I don't actually have a producer right now. It's me in the live stream, and we're relying on some dodgy internet here. Now, the next UK election, that is in 2024. So they're actually held every 5 years. Now, there are a bunch of early ones because of various circumstances that you might remember. The most recent one in 2019. Next one's in 2024, which is obviously quite a while away. Audio issues? Yep, we'll just turn up that mic again. Again, I am the only studio producer here, if you can even call me that in this role. The next election's in 2024. We could see an early election, might we add. Now, there was speculation that Johnson might actually call an early election himself to, save himself. That's not going to happen. So Johnson gone, 54 resignations and a sacking. That's 53 resignations, including cabinet ministers, junior ministers, PPSs, and everything in between. The party's vice chair gone. We know the Conservative Party chairman actually quit the other week. But it just seems to be scandal after scandal for the UK Prime Minister. Partygate, and then this recent thing regarding an MP apparently being, just some extraordinary allegations against him. And so, look, bear with me a moment. Let's just listen in now as we wait for Boris Johnson to come out. Let's just listen into the audio feed there. You'll hear me back in a moment, and stay tuned to our live coverage right here on 6 News. We're back now. Again, let me know if you can hear me all right. Hear me not just in general, but also loudly, because we're hearing that background feed there, and I am trying to make sure the audio is nice and clear for all of you listening on whatever device you're listening on. So stay tuned, because we are expecting him to speak. Now, we don't know exactly when he's going to speak. That's the unfortunate thing here. And when you're a digital-only news outlet in Australia, you don't have the best UK government sources. So we're relying on reports from other outlets. We'll, of course, let you know who they are. But primarily, it's the BBC and Sky News UK there. You're probably going to see Downing Street open, the 10 Downing Street door open a lot. We're not expecting it to always be Boris Johnson, but we'll keep our eye on that camera. We can probably zoom in right now, just briefly. There we go. And so we're going to keep monitoring that situation right now. Who will be the new UK Prime Minister? Well, we don't know. There are so many options, and we've had so many resignations. You can probably have a lot of speculation on that, but it seems this has been building up for quite a while. There was the actual attempt to essentially, what we'd say here in Australia, spill him the other week. Now, he says that was a mandate. I think over 40%, if I recall correctly, 40% said they had no confidence in the Prime Minister. That's Conservatives alone. He will no longer be the UK Prime Minister. And what we are going to see here is, a bit of a battle for who will become leader. You've probably seen a lot of names pop up as we have all these resignations occur and continue to develop. So we'll keep monitoring them for you. Again, any questions you may have, let us know in the chat. Geez, we got a lot of questions here. Okay, this is unrelated, but will we be live streaming for the Victorian election night? Agent Activist asks. Yes, we absolutely will. We've got coverage right now, already developing on our website, 6newsau.com. Go under latest news, you'll see a section called Victoria Decides. That's where our coverage will be. We're taking this pooled shot right now. We're just zooming out there. Is it too loud now? Oh God, I can't win. Okay, let's see if that audio is any better. I'm not an audio expert. We usually have a great producer here, Christian Penny, who is helping me out here. No sign of Larry the cat, by the way. The 10 Downing Street cat. Haven't seen him out today. Can imagine he'll be watching the resignation closely. But as we all are, it seems this is gaining worldwide attention, and it seems to be an issue that is not going to go away for the Conservatives. Now, of course, the thing is, when you've got a lot of anger at the government and the Conservatives in general, you have to wonder whether an early election would actually not help them, but damage them. And people are asking that because the reputation, just for some, even in some safe conservative areas, I'm going to have to make sure I don't use the term liberal for conservative here, which is a whole other thing. Again, I am a Australian politics guru more than I am a UK politics guru, but we are definitely going to see a lot of anger if there was an early election. And we also saw there were two recent by-elections, might I add, that also started this leadership speculation. One was won by the Liberal Democrats there, the centristy party there, and the other was won by the Labour Party there. That's Labour, by the way, not, well, technically the correct spelling, but of course our party doesn't spell it like that. Again, Boris Johnson is gone, not exactly officially yet, but he will go. That is it for the Prime Ministership of Boris Johnson in the United Kingdom. We don't know who the new one will be, but we're definitely going to see a race, I imagine. So you can probably hear, if you're listening carefully, and I'll just be quiet for a second. Yeah, so those are the giant amount of press, reporters, cameramen, producers, whatever, standing outside Downing Street right now. If you turn to any channel, and please don't turn to another channel, we've got coverage here, but if you turn to any other channel, you've got Sky UK, you've got BBC out in front. In terms of who will take his place, again, we don't know. I'm again, not this big UK politics expert, but we definitely do know that it will be a tight contest, and there are probably a lot of possible options there. I've just moved the mic there, so please confirm in the chat whether I'm still coming through clearly, but not too loudly either, and of course not too quietly. Boris Johnson will be speaking in front of a podium here soon, we imagine. We don't know when soon. We're going to continue this coverage for as long as it takes. Might I add, though, Spin Check, our Australian political show, is airing tonight, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We're speaking, our reporter Austin Pollock is speaking to the Greens MP, member for Griffith, Max Chandler-Mather, on a number of issues, including whether the Greens will be taking on Labor in more seats. That's tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Spin Check, right here on 6 News. But for now, we're going to continue with this UK politics coverage. It's approaching 6:55 p.m. Here in Melbourne. In terms of the UK, I'm going to have to do the maths there. That'll be about, we're approaching about 10 a.m. there. I hope that's right. We're approaching about 10 a.m. in London as we prepare for Boris Johnson to resign. Now, this has all been brought about following a number of issues. Probably most of you remember Partygate, where it was reported that there were these illegal lockdown parties that Boris Johnson was apparently at, and we had the Sue Gray report. People were calling for him to resign for months, and they were calling him, a liar. They were accusing him of lying about a various amount of things. Now we've had this situation with an MP named Pincher, I'm not kidding there, who's apparently allegedly groped multiple men, Deputy Chief Whip, I believe, if not Chief Whip, but certainly a pretty senior MP there, especially within the Conservative Party. Boris Johnson accused of lying about that too. And so we initially had two resignations follow from some senior cabinet ministers. Then dozens followed. When I went to bed last night, it was about 35. Right now it stands at 53 resignations plus a sacking from Michael Grove, who told him to resign and got sacked. Boris Johnson, less than 24 hours ago, this is what he said: "I will not resign." Definitely not looking like that now. And so the race will be a close one. Again, any questions you have, please let us know. Yeah, it's coming up at 10 a.m. There's our reporter, Darby Travers there, our senior reporter. Again, let us know any questions or comments you have, and we will follow it. Also, might I add, let us know any other questions that you might have. What we're going to do is we approach 7 p.m. in Melbourne and 10 a.m. in London. We're going to take a brief break. We're going to just listen in to the feed here as we're seeing more people approach Downing Street. I'm not an expert, so I can't tell you who that is, just from his back alone. We're going to listen in now. So stay tuned to this live coverage. We're reading your comments. Yeah. keep them coming. We'll be back in a moment, but this live stream will continue. Welcome back, you're watching 6 News Live. We're approaching 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, 10 a.m. in London as we wait for Boris Johnson to officially resign as UK Prime Minister following quite a few scandals. We're going to go in depth in a moment with freelance journalist Daniel Pizarro, someone who's appeared on 6 News quite a few times actually. Haven't had him on for a while, so good to be able to chat with him again. We're just working that situation out. But again, we want to hear your comments, and I'm sure we'll get Daniel to answer some of your comments as we wait for him. But again, just bear with us here because we're kind of in a precarious sort of situation here when the only producer we actually have right now is me. I am the one producing and live streaming this and commentating or reporting for you here. So I can't say we're in the most professional of setups here. It's working. It's going to have to work. We'll be fine, I'm sure. We'll just have to go with it. So what we're going to do, we're going to cross to Dan Pizarro in a moment. As I said, he's been on 6 News many times before, and he's been covering this situation for American television. I'm sure there's going to have to be a lot of developments he's going to have to update these reporters with, purely just because of how fast moving this situation is. It has developed so fast from Boris Johnson, I will not resign yesterday, to Boris Johnson, I am resigning today. So look, we're going to bring in Dan Pizarro in a moment. We're going to pray for this situation to work, but he is a reporter. He's been reporting for UK television. Let us know in the comments, by the way, if you can hear him. Dan, good evening to you. So I'm sure you've been covering this a fair bit. What's the build-up to all this? Because it's quite extraordinary to have 54 resignations and one sacking too, in amongst that 54 in 48 odd hours.
Good evening, Leo. It's good to be back on 6 News after a while, and what an absolute change. Now, no joke, I was actually literally about to hit the export button for my TV package for several for American television networks, and as soon as I saw the notification, Boris Johnson to resign, I said, okay, got to throw out my script, and I've got to wait for more interviews to come through. This has been one of the most dramatic 48 hours in British political history, and you have to say the build-up has been around us for months upon months. Boris Johnson, even though he came into power just under 3 years ago, and he managed to get his Tory party into a majority at the following general election. He has not been able to maintain a very stable government. He said the handling over Brexit, the problems going on with Northern Ireland over the, what you would say, the border down the Irish Sea. Then you've got a series of sex scandals, followed by the infamous COVID party. This has been one of the most chaotic governments I've seen during my lifetime. And
That's a bold statement there.
Well, it is, because even though, we even had that mini reshuffle that just a few hours ago, where we saw the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, resign, as well as the Welsh Secretary go, and then the Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, also go. The brand new Secretary, Nawin Zahawi, just told in the last hour, Mr. Johnson, you have to go. And that was his brand new Chancellor that had only been in the position a few hours. This shows how disastrous things have gone. And we saw how chaotic things got. There was a select committee chair meeting where Mr. Johnson was absolutely grilled by Labour MP Chris Bryant. And then one of Mr. Johnson's own MPs in the House of Commons asked, when will you resign? And he was very defined at that time, but within a space of a few hours, it seems that Mr. Johnson has completely run out of momentum and puff. He has been losing so much support over the past couple of hours. It's just a miracle he didn't step down yesterday.
Yeah, and look, obviously there were many different factors in the resignation of Theresa May compared to this resignation. I know Brexit was the big thing back in 2019, and I was live, and I remember covering that, and it was quite an extraordinary situation that happened then. In terms of not necessarily the reasons for it, but how it happened. We know, obviously, 54 resignations and or sackings leading up to this. The resignation of Theresa May, how did that come about differently? Because, as far as I recall, we didn't have several dozen ministers go.
No, that was very different, but it's actually the striking parallels to the downfall of Theresa May and the downfall of Boris Johnson. They are very strikingly similar. In fact, if Mr. Johnson goes within a matter of days, he would actually be serving less time as Prime Minister than Theresa May did. Theresa May served for just over 3 years. The big problem, of course, with Theresa May is that she was a Remainer who became Tory leader and Prime Minister and was trying to get through a Brexit deal when her own party was bitterly divided over the whole Brexit situation, especially when it came down to Northern Ireland. And then, of course, when you had the fact that you're in a minority government, as she was at the time after that disastrous decision to have an early election back in 2019, she was finding herself in an incredibly dangerous position. She did have the same leadership rules that Mr. Johnson could abide by, which is if there was a vote of confidence and she won, there wouldn't be another one for another 12 months. However, I did find out that even though she won that vote of confidence, she was told by senior members of her government the party was looking at changing the rules to allow for another contest. So her position was was pretty much untenable at that point. And now the exact same thing has happened to Boris Johnson, but not mostly over Brexit. This has been accumulation of a number of huge scandals that have absolutely disrupted the British government, who have they've lost several by-elections at the moment, as well as the fact that they are behind in the polls. The Labour leader Keir Starmer, of course, would certainly be having a field day now. The big question, of course, is who will be replacing Boris Johnson as leader. Now, I do have at least one name put forward already that has said that she wants to be leader, and that is Suella Braverman, and she is the Attorney General for England and Wales. So she says that she's already interested in. We haven't heard at the moment whether the Deputy Prime Minister, Dominic Raab, will be potentially interested. We do know that Steve Baker, who used to be chair of the European Research Group, he's expressed English, and Tom Tugendhat, who's the chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, he's also put forward his interest. We do know, of course, Michael Gove, who at one point was a big rival to Boris Johnson, who Johnson actually just sacked a couple of hours ago as a housing secretary, that he's not interested, and nor is the former health secretary, Matt Hancock. But this could be a very, very, very competitive election for leader. And the other big question, of course, is will the UK decide to go for another early election, because there seems to be a lot of problems going on with this government.
Absolutely, and the thing is, though, with this early election, because there's so much anger towards not just the government, but of course it's a Conservative government, so there's anger towards the Conservatives, even in areas, and I'm seeing it on Sky and the BBC, even in areas that are typically safe Conservative seats and areas, and of course there's far more seats in the UK than there are in Australia. But could an early election, if it was held by whoever becomes Prime Minister after this, and we know Boris Johnson does have to remain caretaker Prime Minister till autumn in the UK because of their rules, that's my understanding, but could an early election actually backfire on the Conservatives?
Well, it could. Now, Boris Johnson says he wants to stay on as Prime Minister for at least a little bit longer, but that will all depend on whether or not his own party will allow him to. The question of course, is if he resigns immediately, there would be you could have an acting leader, an acting Prime Minister, which in line, not necessarily in line of succession, but Dominic Raab as the Deputy Prime Minister could step forward straight away into that position and then hold over until the Tory Party conference, which is in October. And that would give at least a couple of months of ruthless campaigning from whoever's going to be throwing their hat in. If Boris Johnson stays on, he could at the same time be a distraction. It could be very problematic with him, especially if you've got a different leader of a Conservative Party while he's still Prime Minister. That's a very unusual situation to happen. So you've got to take that into account. What is going on there? Another thing that we also have to take into account, of course, is whether or not there will be an early election. There were rumours that there would be something like that, even though the current government majority is quite healthy. But we have seen a number of people who have voiced their disquiet about this. One of the biggest things, of course, has been these recent by-elections, which have been seized by Labor and the Liberal Democrats. And the Liberal Democrats are looking potentially to rebuild after that massive, almost annihilation they had several years ago, and they've slowly been rebuilding.
They won one of those two recent by-elections too.
Yes, exactly. So, and that particular election was one of the biggest swings in a by-election history in Britain. So one of the big things, of course, is that a lot of people who are Tory voters who don't necessarily like Labour will gravitate towards the Liberal Democrats. You also have the problems going on in Scotland, because there are big now demands from the First Minister there, Nicola Sturgeon, to push for a new Scottish independence referendum, and that has also been causing major headaches for the Johnson government. Looking at the results, because it is sometimes a bit difficult to understand how an election result will happen with the UK, because they use first past the post voting. So results can be very skewed depending on where the votes are, how many seats are won, and all that. Currently, if you're looking at it, it would be a Labour victory under Sir Keir Starmer. He would definitely be successful, and the Tories, they could get maybe 30% of the vote. That could be, they could, depending, hold some of their seats, others but if they lose in key seats and everywhere, it could be an absolute wipeout. Now, we know, of course, that there isn't an election due for at least another couple of years, but I wouldn't be surprised if this new leader, whoever he or she may be, may decide we have to go back to the country, because there is a lot of anger going on there.
What I want to know is what we think might happen to Boris Johnson himself. Now, other than going as Prime Minister, of course, would he actually leave the Parliament entirely, trigger a by-election? Because after the whole debacle that's happened here, you imagine he might just want to get away from it.
That is one of the big questions, of course. It's not very often that Prime Ministers stay around the House of Commons after they resign or are forced to resign or quit. It's not, but of course, Theresa May is still in the House of Commons as a backbencher.
Yeah, and she was speaking heavily about Johnson only a couple months ago, I remember.
Exactly. So she's still there. Boris Johnson, though, given the problems and the controversies that he has had swirling around him, especially as we see how deeply unpopular he's become within his own party, could be significantly more difficult for him to stay around. When you think about Boris Johnson is a very big personality. He has been well known for his television appearances, his role as Mayor of London. He has been around a lot. He's a very big type of person, and being a simple backbencher, it's something I really don't see him wanting to do. I wouldn't be surprised if once he stands down, he will either serve out the rest of the parliamentary term as a backbencher or decide to quit. But that also means another by-election, and if the Tories lose that one, then there's real problems going on. I don't know what Mr. Johnson will say until he makes this official statement later today, but it's not something I would put behind him to say I'm going immediately, because given all these messages towards him from former friends and rivals of him, he's not popular.
Yeah, and by the way, just on what you were discussing before, for those who are unaware, obviously we have preferential voting here in Australia. First past the post essentially means what it sounds. The person with most votes wins. We don't have a two-party preferred or whatever we have here, which obviously provides for some interesting results. And we know the UK Parliament also has a much larger amount of constituencies, essentially our version of electorates than we have. So you also see, plenty of minor parties, as you mentioned there, the Liberal Democrats. There's also their version of the Green Party, but that's nowhere near as significant as our Green Party, I would say. And so we definitely are going to see a pretty extraordinary result in an election. I can imagine if it became an early election.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But it's very hard to say. One of the hardest things with first past the post is that it is very difficult to project seats, because you could lose. One of the most famous elections, 1983, Margaret Thatcher won an enormous landslide victory, but her party actually received fewer votes than what she did in the previous election. While the Labour Party under then leader Michael Foot got 28% of the votes and and had one of the worst results of the Labour Party until Jeremy Corbyn. While the SDP Liberal Alliance, which was the forebear of the Lib Dems, they got 25% of the vote, but they only got a skerrick of the seats that Labor did. So it can be very difficult to project, because you could get a minority government, you could get a majority government. You don't know, because these just depending, it can all come down to a couple of seats and where a few thousand votes shift.
Oh yeah, and you can hear for our viewers watching at home, there's helicopters going atop filming this. It's quite amazing. And look, we point back to the similarities, and there are obviously many differences, but some of the similarities with Australia. We know spills, and obviously there's the 12-month difference, but they're trying to change that, obviously. And then you've got the, ministers, resigning. But the thing is, when we've had those spills, they've usually happened in the space of a day. There's been a build-up, but we haven't had 48 hours of resignations like this. It's quite extraordinary. Again, I'm just reading some of the comments. People are wanting to know, how can a government function like this? With 53 resignations and a sacking, how can a government function like that?
Well, you have to remember that Boris Johnson only a month ago, he had a vote of confidence that was undertaken. This was very similar to what happened with Theresa May. And Boris Johnson won that confidence vote with 58% of Tory MPs voting. So you could say 58% supported, but 41% didn't. So that was a significant minority that were voicing their disquiet and distrust towards him. You also have to remember that there have been leadership elections in Britain over the past couple of decades where even if a leader has won, they go almost like very soon after or immediately, because it just seems that when people see the lack of support or they don't get as much support as needed, then you've got a problem. It's the same thing that happened with Margaret Thatcher. She was, when there was a first leadership spill that happened against her in the late 1980s, she won massively with a huge majority, but 1/6 of Tory MPs didn't vote for her. And then the next one, she was so overconfident, she actually lost the first round. And so even though she could have gone to the second round, she pulled out because people were deserting her minute by minute. The politics is very fickle, and Britain, people will change alliances very quickly, especially if another person throws their hat in the ring or someone says this person has got to go. In the case of Margaret Thatcher, it was a former Deputy Prime Minister, Sir Geoffrey Howe, who gave that blistering attack in the House of Commons against her. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. In this case, for Boris Johnson, it's the resignations of his two senior cabinet members, like Sajid Javid, and these things have just snowballed into a massive disaster, and it's been called the official government crisis. So if you're a prime minister in charge of a crisis, it doesn't look good.
Now, backbenchers have obviously spoken out for quite a while. Conservative backbenchers, that is, against Boris Johnson. They've spoken out on TV. It's obviously a bit different here when a backbencher condemning their leader would be news for weeks on end. But it seems to be, they've just said time to go or he should think about going. But these are ministers, some of them junior, some of them senior, some of them in the cabinet here. And we don't know exactly how every single person voted in that no confidence motion, the one that saw him survive. But you have to wonder whether some of the people who have gone since then are now or didn't. Let me rephrase that. You have to wonder whether the people who have gone and resigned the past 48 hours were also ones who voted against Boris Johnson or they did support him. Because I can imagine there are a few people, because of the scandal that broke since then with the MP, I believe his name is Pincher, who has been accused of some groping allegations there. So you have to wonder whether he started to lose support since then, or whether it's just people who didn't support him actually going public.
Well, no, it's several of his previous supporters did call for him to resign. One of the biggest was the Home Secretary, Priti Patel. She was a major backer of Boris Johnson, and then a few hours ago, she called on him to resign. A number of people like that, including the Transport Secretary, who also backed Boris Johnson, also said you have to go. So there's a number of these major Boris Johnson supporters that have withdrawn their support of him, and like the Chris Pincher scandal and how the Prime Minister has been handling it has been nothing short of a disaster. When I saw him being questioned by Chris Bryant at that select committee, I just saw the time when when Boris Johnson knew that his time was up, and because of the way that he sort of crumpled in. He said, I wasn't going to talk about these kind of the way I was going to talk about it when press.
I mean, he described his week as terrific.
Yes, exactly. And there's and then you've part of the other issue is it wasn't just from what Boris Johnson knew or didn't know about Mr. Pincher, but you also had the Assistant Government Whip, Sarah Dines, allegedly asking one of Mr. Pincher's victims who was groped about their sexuality, and she said, in quote, upon asked if he was gay, the alleged victim replied, "What's that got to do with it? But yes, I am." She responded, "Well, that doesn't make it straightforward." Now, that made things even worse for this whole situation, and we know that even we've got even more resignations that have been piling up more, and of course the fact is that we know that Boris Johnson was aware of the allegations from an earlier incident involving Mr. Pincher going back several years ago in the Foreign Office, and yet he appointed him as Deputy Chief Whip of the Conservative Party. And this is when that interview came out with the BBC, it was then minutes later that you had Rishi Sunak and Sajid Javid resign, and then that's when the whole ball started running with these resignations.
Yeah, and I remember Daniel Pizzaro here, a journalist, friend of the show. He's joining us live as we continue this coverage. I remember on, I think it was either the BBC or Sky UK, they were saying, when there are culture problems and when there are incidents like what's allegedly happened with Mr. Pincher, they go to the Deputy Chief Whip or the Chief Whip. And when the Deputy Chief Whip has these allegations against him, it's just extraordinary. I don't know if you're a betting man, but just going on what we said earlier, imagine if there was an election held today. Do you think the Conservatives would hold on?
If it was today, I would be placing my bets on Keir Starmer walking into number 10 as the first Labour Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. That's according to, based on the polls that I've been looking at. One of the most recent ones we had, where just this was one of the latest polls I had was July 3rd. So this is when the scandal was brewing, and it had been simmering for a couple of days. It was after those massive by-elections losses, where we have Labour on 41%, the Conservatives on 35%, the Lib Dems on 3%, the Greens and Reform 5%, and 3% for the Scottish Nationals. Based on that kind of figures, if the results all went out the right way, it would be a Labour landslide. So we could have Sir Keir Starmer in 10 Downing Street sooner rather than later, but of course, who knows what's going to happen? British politics can throw up some surprising things going on.
Oh, exactly. And just quickly, without going too in depth, for those who don't know, we've talked about the Liberal Democrats tonight. Now they're very different to our Liberal Democrats. Just explain a basic overview if there's any Australian party that would be closest to them for viewers who might be unaware, because we hear about them so often, but I think some people just aren't aware of who these UK Lib Dems are.
That's fair enough. So the Lib Dems, they came out of a merger between the Social Democratic Party, which was a splinter of the British Labour Party in the early 1980s, and the old Liberal Party of the UK, which by that point had really shriveled up. It had waxing and waning fortunes, but has been out of government for decades since. And it became the Liberal Democrats in the late 1980s, and its results have fluctuated tremendously over the past couple of years. They were, of course, in a coalition government with David Cameron from 2010-2015, but they lost a lot of support due to issues like supporting university tuition fees rising, which was a massive election-breaking broken promise for them. They are basically what you could say a centrist party that veers centre-left to centre-right. So they take aspects from parts of what you would have from the Labour Party to a degree, parts of the very left wing of the Liberal Party here in Australia, and also a little bit of the Greens. They, in many ways, were kind of similar to the old Australian Democrats, who of course don't exist pretty much in most forms anyway. But yeah,
they try to keep getting revived, and they seem to just be failing. But yeah.
Yeah, so one of their main things, of course, is that they are trying to be unashamedly pro-European, and they would be pushing for, if they held the balance of power in the House of Commons, they would be definitely trying to push for a referendum on getting the UK back into the European Union. Which, when you think about it, so many of these problems all came back from that Brexit referendum and the damage and the problems that have come out of that. So the Lib Dems, who they could potentially, I wouldn't see them getting any higher than what they might have done in the 90s at the moment. They're getting 11% of the vote. They could get higher around, they've done higher a couple of weeks ago into the mid teens and all that. But a lot of their issues too is that often their votes have been very spread out. They need to really focus on a number of seats, which they possibly can. And if they more than double their seats and all that, they'll be able to, let's say the Lib Dems are back. And it also is a warning shot to the other parties that many people are looking back towards the European Union. And I looked at some of the polls, really, British people are still split on whether or not leaving the EU was a good idea. And some would support going back into the EU.
Oh, still?
Yes.
Oh, I think maybe if we had to use a modern day comparison, maybe we can compare them to the Teal Independents, the Liberal Democrats, in a way. But look, there's obviously a lot different. As we said there, the Liberal Democrats have to focus on certain seats again, going back because of the whole first past the post thing. They can't rely on the votes of Labour or Greens or any of the parties there to help them. They just have to go alone, and that's why we've heard for a while we always hear stories like, oh, Liberal Democrats MP encourages people to vote for Labour in certain seats because they're unwinnable. And you always talk about unwinnable, but this, it's a very different system in some regards there. So we don't know when Boris Johnson is going to speak, which is unfortunate because I don't want to have to be ranting with you all night. I'm sure you've got better things to do, but we are definitely expecting him to speak soon. Now, what he's going to say, we don't know, as we heard, whether he'll resign or not. And we encourage people to keep putting those questions in the chat as we monitor this. Again, it's a live stream outside 10 Downing Street right now. You've probably heard reporters from all networks right now. So yeah, it's just extraordinary. We know, obviously, there's a lot of talk about what's happened with these ministers who are gone. 53 resigned, 1 sacked last night by Boris Johnson. What happens to them now? Because I imagine some of them, they want to go back into whatever. But there are others who just might be sick of this and are just wanting to become backbenchers now.
I think part of this will be depending on first who will be wanting to stay with the acting Tory party leader until the conference is held, and whether or not, of course, that's acting leader or if it's Boris Johnson, how long that period of time will actually be before we have the election for a new Tory leader. You have to remember that the Tory party leadership election rules say that first you've got a series of rounds between the number of candidates that are declared interest and then throw their hat in the ring, and then if it's down to the last two, then that's put to a popular vote among Tory party members. So that can be a long drawn out process that can be made. The thing that you have to remember is that we are waiting to know whether or not Boris Johnson will stay on as in this capacity as Prime Minister until that Tory party conference, or he'll be told, no, you've got to go right now because we can't have you around in the top job. Because when you think about it, if you're Prime Minister and you're not leader of the same party, it is a very bizarre situation to deal with. Regarding the people who have recently left, I wouldn't be surprised if we do see some say they want to come back in at least on a temporary basis. But when there is going to be a new leader, a new Prime Minister to unveil a cabinet, you will definitely see some new faces and maybe some older faces. Some of the big, more controversial people may be pushed out or may be promoted. Others might decide it's time to go, and they will announce their intention to step down at the next election. There's so many, but the fact is that there are so many people that resigned over the past couple of hours. You will definitely have people who backed Boris Johnson will be back in cabinet and back in the junior ministries, and some that didn't, and so you will have a different cabinet. But the question, of course, it does come down to is who will be this new leader and who will be this new Prime Minister.
I have to ask, and I'm not expecting you to be this Anthony Green level expert on this UK thing. But factions. We see them all the time. We hear about factional infighting with our major parties, Labour and Liberals. Is that something that plays into account in the UK Conservatives?
Absolutely. Almost all political parties, whether they like it or not, have factions, and the Tory party does have many factions, and this resolves around social and economic issues, and it all depends. Like you might have heard infamously, Margaret Thatcher complained about wet Tories who were pretty much left-wing Tories and all that. Thatcher, who is a social conservative, is also part of the free market. Boris Johnson is part of the One Nation conservative rank, so that's similar to like Harold Macmillan and Edward Heath. And these are broad liberal conservatives that are slightly right-wing, but also can be more adept with some changes to social policy. You also have the more right-wing conservatives. You also then throw in those who support Brexit and those who support the European Union. You throw that in, which has been which is a completely new factions going on at the same time. So you have a lot of rivalries and problems going on with these whole factions. So the question, of course, is with Boris Johnson being this populist One Nation conservative who's often leaned into this populist stance with a lot of issues and so on the social and political fronts. The question, of course, is will the Tories want to go for someone similar to him in the One Nation style, or will they try and go for someone more to the right or the left? And how will they also deal with the economic factors, whether it's someone who's more free market or more protectionist? These are issues that are very important to also think, because the parties try to have at least some kind of cohesion with these factions to make sure that no one is left out in the cold, but at the same time people do want the power.
And we're hearing in the comments, and I haven't checked this out independently myself, but Buckingham Palace has declined to comment on whether the Queen has had any communication with Boris Johnson. She's at Windsor Castle, apparently. What role does the Queen play in all of this?
Well, the Queen is supposed to, of course, is the head of state, but her role is, for the vast majority of time, a purely ceremonial role. Generally, when she's the one who invites a party leader to form government or try to form government, and she's also, of course, has a weekly meeting with the Prime Minister to discuss and be briefed on government initiatives, ideas and all that. And she often acts as an advisor, conciliator, all those kind of ideas. We don't know a lot about the Queen's personal preferences when it comes to politics, but we do know, of course, that she is someone that is fully informed about what is going on. And it's very controversially, there were accusations when Boris Johnson became Prime Minister that he might have actually misled the Queen regarding regarding Brexit and regarding the legal ramifications.
And that's got to be one of the biggest sins you can commit as a UK Prime Minister, to mislead the Queen.
Absolutely, it is. If you are found to have misled the monarch, it is an extremely serious accusation, and it could possibly be grounds for being forced out. We haven't had, of course, I definitely wouldn't say the Queen would dismiss the Prime Minister like that right now.
Gough Whitlam style.
No, we wouldn't have that that kind of situation brewing, but we do know that the Queen is definitely informed of the situation. She would definitely be aware of what would be going on. She would, by convention, of course, once there be at the moment, once Boris Johnson steps down, he can speak to the Queen and tell her and advise her as the Prime Minister who to invite for government. In the convention, it would be someone like Dominic Raab as acting Prime Minister, or or if that's the case, if Boris Johnson steps down immediately. But once the Tory party leadership conference is done and dusted and there's a clear leader, that person would be elected Tory party leader. And then Boris Johnson, if he's still Prime Minister by that point, even if it's acting, or if it's Dominic Raab is acting, he would tell the Queen to invite that leadership winner to form government, and then the Queen will ask that person to do so. And given the fact that there is a Tory majority government, it should be fairly seamless to have a majority government for at least the time being.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about Boris Johnson's time as Prime Minister. Some might say it's ending too too soon. Others might say it should have been over ages ago. He is the Prime Minister that delivered Brexit. Obviously, something that was a contributing factor in also the downfalls of many UK Conservatives. Something that has been talked about in worldwide press for years, whether people understand it or not. And we're not going to go into the whole details of Brexit here. But apart from that, what has actually Boris Johnson done, the highs and the lows of his time as Prime Minister? Because he's certainly been an entertaining character.
Well, I think part of that's the issue with how he is. He is like the fact is, that's Boris. Oh, he's witty. Oh, he's funny. He's entertaining. That's the thing that we had when he was mayor of London, and like to a degree, a lot of that has come into his prime ministership, and that has often caused a lot of problems with taking him seriously, as well as him trying to manage this government, which has been rocked by so many scandals. The main thing, of course, is the fact that we do know that he did deliver Brexit, but at the same time, those ramifications are still ongoing. We know that the British Parliament have been debating about and controversially overruling the EU agreement they have regarding the border with Northern Ireland, which is potentially a massive issue for dealing with any kind of trade issues with the European Union, because Northern Ireland, under this agreement, even though it's no longer part of the European Union, goods will be checked if they arrive from the UK as almost as if there's a border, because there has to be an open border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland as per the Good Friday Agreement and the Sunningdale Agreement. There has to be, otherwise you could see once again violence in Northern Ireland popping up, which has been simmering for years now. We can't see that kind of thing happening. In many ways, of course, Boris Johnson, he's been praised, of course, for his stance against Russia with Ukraine. That has been praised by a lot of people, but he's been dominated by just the sheer number of controversies, which makes it hard for people to say that to him to be like remembered fairly and in high regard, especially when you hit the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, and of course Partygate, which the police investigated. You had senior advisors quit. Some of like Dominic Cupboards. You had a controversy over renovations of Downing Street. You had so many issues. It just basically has overwhelmed any potential good things that Boris Johnson has, and that is despite leading the Conservative Party to their biggest election win since '87. So, yeah.
And the thing is, as we discussed before, and I won't go into it again over and over again, but the UK Conservatives really, as you mentioned there, and I would have to agree with your prediction that if there was an election held today, Keir Starmer would become the new UK Prime Minister. I mean, we've seen by-election losses, we've seen at local government levels too.
Absolutely.
Huge losses and gains to even, Lib Dems and even the Green Party they have over there.
Absolutely.
Now,
and you have to understand also, local elections, even though they might be not taken as seriously, they can often be, to a certain degree, a bit of a weather vane regarding how popular a party can or cannot be.
Yeah, it's a real different situation in some regards to what we have here. Now, obviously, Boris Johnson has been on the world stage a lot, whether that's with Trump or whether that was with our former Prime Minister here, Scott Morrison. I don't remember. Has Albo ever met with him? Did he? Oh.
I don't believe. To my knowledge, I don't believe they have met face to face.
Too late then.
They were in. Of course, they did. They have communicated before, but face to face they haven't. But of course, you have to remember Anthony Albanese's only been in the job for 5 weeks, so he's. Of
course, and I was only out because I know. Obviously, we've seen Anthony Albanese in the UK a lot recently, but there we go, a bit too late for a face-to-face meeting there. Boris Johnson, we were talking about factions there. Apart from his own kind of leadership style and maybe even, some might say the culture within Parliament and the party, would we actually expect anything to change policy-wise if any of these front runners we've been talking about manage to get in, whether that's local or on the world stage? Because I from what I understand, it'd be more of the same, apart from again that pretty unique style of leadership Johnson had and has had for years now.
That is certainly true to a degree. The main thing that we would have to first see is how this leadership election will go, because if it's a very narrow election, that could immediately start undermining the then new leader, especially if there's disquiet backbenchers or if the polls continue to get worse and worse for the Tories. If you have someone who is elected with a very large landslide, that will be able to at least give some people a bit more of a credit boost and build the foundations of the new leader. But then you also have the issue if there's no leadership contest. There's only one person who puts their hand up and becomes leader. That in some cases might not necessarily be a good thing. Sometimes it can work because the party just says we don't want to do a distracting leadership contest. We go straight into having a leader. But at the same time, that means that vital policy discussions and personality differences might not be discussed. So that's an issue. I think one of the main things that you have to understand too, predominantly, that with a lot of government leaders outside of Australia, is if you are elected to the position of Prime Minister and you don't do it at an election, like a general election, often people think you don't have the mandate to move with big changes. You have to call an election sooner rather than later to secure a mandate by yourself. That is something that is quite particular, and you have to think that this person, whoever it may be, could face the possibility that I might have to go to the country to secure a mandate of my own, even if the polls don't look it.
By the way, our own fact-checking political reporter, Roman McKinnon, he has confirmed Boris Johnson met with Anthony Albanese in Madrid, took a couple photos together, so...
Yes, I just saw that.
Yes, Anthony Albanese has met with the soon-to-be former UK Prime Minister. I'm sure he'll meet with the... I'm sure he'd meet with the new one when that all happens soon. But look, quite an extraordinary set of developments there. Is there anything else, because we'll let you go in a sec, but is there anything else, Daniel, that you think is really key to what's happening right now that the viewers might need to be aware of? Because, as we say, it's a hard situation to kind of understand, where you've had more than 50 ministers resign.
I think in many ways people have been pointing out that despite we had a wave of populist leaders coming in over the past couple of years, like Donald Trump, and to a lesser degree someone like Scott Morrison and Boris Johnson. We had in France Marine Le Pen doing very well in the French presidential elections at one point and all that. But at the same time, when you look at it, they're now all gone. We don't have Donald Trump, we don't have Scott Morrison, and now we don't have Boris Johnson. So that's this could really be a massive blockade towards those who might think that a more popular style of leader could work, because given the fact that, especially in the UK, they've gone through quite a few prime ministers in less than 10 years now, and Boris Johnson's popular style has made him one of the shorter-lived prime ministers of recent history. It's not necessarily a good look. But I do know, of course, that that Boris Johnson has written up his resignation letter, and it will be delivered soon. So that's coming in right now.
It's quite extraordinary, this entire situation in the past few days. Let's wrap that up again. Over 50 resignations from ministers, some of the most senior cabinet, junior PPSs, others, the vice chair, following local government losses, by-election losses, the Conservative chair quitting, following Partygate and the Sue Gray report. Following all that, now it seems Pincher is the final straw for the time of Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. Daniel Pizarro, maybe we can catch up and we'll discuss this in our Sunday night news bulletin, but we'll leave it there. Sincerely appreciate all your analysis for us tonight, and thank you very much.
My pleasure, mate. It's good to talk to you, and yes, I'll keep a close eye on, because I'll be staying up well into the night for America.
Oh, look, I was up till 4 a.m. last night watching it unfold, waiting for a resignation, and it turns out at 6:30 p.m. the next day, or the same day technically, it happens. Daniel Pizarro, thank you very much. That is Daniel Pizarro, journalist who we've been speaking to all night here as we continue following these extraordinary developments out of the United Kingdom, where we've had Boris Johnson set to resign as Prime Minister following quite a few extraordinary circumstances. Let's be honest here, just a wide range of issues following, and then you had it started with the Sue Gray report into lockdown parties. Again, might we add any questions you have? Let us know. We are still reading the chat, and we are doing our best to monitor that. Again, we are I guess you could say short on a team here, in that we don't have a full team monitoring this situation. Isn't that fun? But we are still here, we are still live, and we are still monitoring this extraordinary situation. We're also getting updates in the chat. We've got Derby Travers there. Geelong leading Melbourne in the AFL. I should be watching that, but unfortunately I'm covering United Government, the UK government, because why not? Because of interesting circumstances. So again, let us know in the chat any developments you have, any news updates you see as well, because it's always hard at times for us to monitor it, so we appreciate your help here too. So look, we will just continue following this story right now. You're seeing a standby slide right there. We're just waiting for our pulled feed to go back, but as long as you can still hear me, let me keep telling me that you can hear me. As long as you can still hear me, we are all fine on that side of things. So we'll keep following that. Also a reminder that we have Spin Check, our Australian political show, coming up in about 10 minutes. We are hoping to bring that to you. We are having I wouldn't say troubles or technical issues, but I would say we are having a few other things going on that are almost preventing that broadcast from happening. Stay tuned to this YouTube channel, Spin Check. Should be airing in a couple minutes right here on 6 News with Austin Pollock. We're speaking to Greens MP, member for Griffith, Max Chandler Mather, about what he could deliver, and everything like that. So quite an extraordinary situation continuing to develop out of the United Kingdom, where we're going to have a new Prime Minister there because of a extraordinary set of circumstances. I don't think there's any other way to describe it, because it has absolutely been a couple of interesting days. By the way, let us know whether you expected this today. Most of our viewers on Twitter were saying they expected him to resign within the week or soon after. Not today. He has resigned today, or is about to. So let us know your thoughts, your views, your take on social media as well. Now, we might add that there's also a lot else going on in the news, and we will be continuing to look at that very closely, because there's always stuff happening. But again, wanting to just again kind of recap how this is all played out. 53 resignations when we went live. 53 resignations and a sacking, which is extraordinary. An extraordinary amount of people gone. And that's the only word you can use. Gone. They have just gone and quit pretty suddenly. 2 senior ones initially, and we heard, Boris's leadership is under threat, which we had been hearing, might I add, for quite a while. But now it seems official. Boris Johnson will no longer be UK Prime Minister. When exactly his time will run up, because, he could be interim. We don't know the exact full details there. But he, in general, in the basic scheme of things, in the most basic terms possible, Boris Johnson is gone. That is really the only way to put it now, given what we've seen unfold tonight, right here, live on 6 News, as the UK gets ready for a new Prime Minister. By the way, also we want to hear from you in the chat. Are you that close in general following UK politics? Because it's always something interesting to follow, but it's not always easy to understand. We've been trying to explain it with Dan Pizarro, but, even like their voting system's very different to ours. So, let us know in the chat. Right there, we are waiting for our live stream to return. I know it sounds desperate, but that's what happens when you get a pull feed. Pull feed, for those who aren't aware, it just essentially means it's not ours. So look, we don't have a pull feed anymore. That seems to have frozen. That's not on our end. That is on the pool end. 59, we're hearing Tim Hocking, which is interesting. That's quite a few. PM statement expected around midday London time. Okay, well, it's approaching 8 PM Eastern Standard, as we stay here. In other news, Nine's reporting. Let's just talk about general news. Why not? Nine's reporting Scott Morrison has approached the NRL about joining the ARLC. How amazing. By the way, again, we want to remind you we've got this standby slide up. This is entirely on them, not ours. There we go, Scott Morrison. How's that for a very random news story? That's about as random as it gets these days. That seems to be what's happening, other than, the United Kingdom government, well, some might say collapsing, which I guess is one of the only ways to describe it. When you have dozens of resignations, and a government that can essentially not operate, it's a pretty extraordinary situation happening there. So we'll keep obviously monitoring that. What we are going to do now, we're just going to take a quick break from commentary. You'll hear some music. Why not? We can enjoy that, and you'll hear me back in a few minutes. You're watching 6 News live as the United Kingdom prepares to have a new Prime Minister. We're back in a sec. I swear to God, Ben. I swear to God. I cannot believe I'm putting myself through this. Ah! Test. That came through.
Excuse me, red circle.
Welcome back, you're watching 6 News Live. I have been made aware that during that brief break my mic was live. That obviously was not the intention. Apologies if anyone was offended by some of the language used there. So we are continuing our live coverage as Boris Johnson resigns. We seem to have gotten our live feedback, which is a welcome development. For those who were watching a minute ago, we were having some issues with that. So we're gonna cross back to that. If anyone can People can tell me whether you can hear that live feed. That would be great. Or see it, rather. I should say see it. Because, obviously, I am the only producer here. Now, in a moment, we're going to be speaking to our political reporter, Roman McKinnon, who I think is watching the stream because, as I said, he has no queue, so I'm probably just going to call him and it's going to go out live. So we'll see how that turns out. It seems to be this really this dodgy. I can hear it with my eyes. Sean Valentine. Fantastic to hear that. But we're going to call. I know this sounds really unprofessional, but we're going to call Roman McKinnon, our political reporter here in Australia. We were speaking to Daniel Pizarro, journalist, earlier, but let's call Roman and see what happens. And Roman, I hope you are watching the stream now, because you are about to go out live to the nation and the world, right here on 6 News as we continue this coverage. Also, let's hope the audio is nice and clear too. We've been having weird issues with that. I know this is the fun part of live broadcasting, isn't it? Where you hear the phone ringing for Roman McKinnon. Roman, I sound like a radio host here. You're on live with 6 News now. There we go. So we'll be continuing this coverage, and again, I'm sure you're watching and you warned me here. Apologies for anyone who heard some interesting choice of language during that brief break there, as we approach 8 p.m. Eastern on the Australian East Coast. It's approaching about 11 a.m. in London, where we've returned. We've managed to get this live stream back of 10 Downing Street outside there. Not much interesting happening there right now. But Roman, in terms of some of the reaction on social media, what's it been like? We've been seeing people monitoring this overnight, as have I, right around the world. So what are you seeing in terms of some of the reaction? Because if I turn on Twitter, my internet's going to go down, and that'll be the end of this live stream. So tell me what you're seeing.
I'm seeing a lot of sort of happiness, a bit like what Scott Morrison dealt with when he lost the election. A lot of not as much anger I'm seeing towards Boris Johnson, but I'm seeing a lot, quite a bit of anger towards him. I'm seeing, just the sheer amount of ministers ministers resigning in the span of 48 hours. It's very incredible. I think 53 members the last time I checked.
It was. When we went on air and when we heard that this resignation would happen, we were told 53 plus a sacking. So we'll round that up to 54. I've heard in the chat, and I haven't been able to check, but I've heard in the chat it's about 60 now. 59, 60. Now, by the way, we just want to, before I continue this conversation, for viewers wanting to tune into Spin Check on 6 News with our interview with Greens MP Max Chandler-Mather, you can tune in on our YouTube channel right now. This live stream will continue. Spin Check is live right now, though. Go check that out. 6 News YouTube channel are available anytime on demand. That's right now with Austin Pollock. But Roman, going back to you, our regular Spin Check host, who you had some renovations, didn't you, or some kind of thing that did like. Yeah. Oh, look, it's fine. That's the great thing about having this great team. We get all these other options to present. But in terms of what's going on here, I imagine if we checked UK Twitter, they'd be talking about it a bit more. We might see some more anger there, or some people saying they don't want him to go. But I guess this means, in terms of what I was talking about with Daniel Pizarro earlier, some kind of populist leaders, Morrison, Trump, Johnson, gone. Which obviously, globally, you imagine there'll be interesting reactions there. Now, we do know Anthony Albanese, he did meet with Boris Johnson, I think it was in Madrid. When was that? Because obviously Albo hasn't been in office for too long.
Yeah, that was during the during the NATO summit in Madrid, as you mentioned. Sorry, I'm just pulling it up. They did meet. So Anthony Albanese has met with quite a few leaders. Of course, the Quad leaders meeting. Also that So they met just at the end of June, so around the 29th of June. So pretty historic. The first time they met, of course, after the federal election.
Maybe the last time too. Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
So they were also talking about different things. I've got it up here. Anthony Albanese, of course, is a Sydney Rabbitohs NRL supporter. He gave Boris Johnson a jacket from the NRL team before they sat down in front of the cameras. So, pretty interesting move. Yeah, definitely something. Gave him a Rabbitohs jacket. But yeah, so Anthony Albanese has been really to country just being as Prime Minister. I think he's been overseas more than he has been in his own country, which some people might say it's good to build connections, of course, with the French president.
Especially after that submarine deal. He's faced criticism for that. Are you an NRL? You're in Queensland. Are you an NRL follower, Roman?
No, I think I'm going to stay to my Lions. I've got the Lions beanie on at the moment. They're not playing, but it's good.
Fantastic. So, yeah. I follow the Hawks, but look, anyone who follows AFL is a tick in my book. So do all our NRL supporters who inevitably are about to unsubscribe. Please don't. By the way, I was about to apologise because we lost our live feed there, our pooled live feed. It is back now. And you can probably hear in the background there, we've had, so many reporters standing outside this building, 10 Downing Street. I really hope Larry the cat, the Downing Street cat, appears soon, but we'll see there.
I did see a video of him walking past just before, so yeah, the account, of course, it's not the cat that's tweeting, but
I wish.
Tweeting a little bit.
Well, how do we know? We don't have any solid evidence that the cat doesn't tweet. So look, we'll leave that as a bit of an undecided fact check for now.
Your timeline cleanser, right?
Ebony, I'm sure she's asleep now. But look, this is. But in a more serious note, I mean, this is obviously going to have some interesting ramifications. Do you imagine Anthony Albanese? I would say tomorrow, because it'll be about 9 p.m. when Boris Johnson finally comes out and makes a statement. But do you imagine Anthony Albanese or anyone in Labor would have something to say about this? Because while we don't know who the Prime Minister will be immediately, we know there will be a different one, and they will have to work with someone with a very different leadership style to the unique style of Boris Johnson.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a statement released probably mid-morning tomorrow, maybe in about 12 hours or so at 10 past 8 on the East Coast. I think, there will definitely be a statement released by Anthony Albanese, whether there's one by the Foreign Minister maybe, Penny Wong, but I think she's busy in Singapore or...
she always seems to be busy right now. She's been out and about. I wonder if the opposition will say anything too, although I don't know in that regards. Who knows? Scott Morrison could post something. Oh, my good friend Boris Johnson. I you can imagine those kind of lines, but that's all speculation at this stage, which is all we can really go by.
And maybe as someone in the NRL chair as well, maybe.
Oh yeah, well, that's. You know what that means though. If he goes to that board, I think that might be bye Morrison as the member for Cook. And we've been hearing those by-election rumours. We love a good by-election at 6 News.
Oh, isn't that great? Yeah.
No, that hasn't been happening yet. So, yeah. Look, by the way, again... No, all good.
I was just going to say, a few quick facts. I'm just pulling it up from the
go
website.
Ahead.
So, basically, Boris Johnson is expected to resign after a series of cabinet resignations, 53. That's a whopping number, especially in 48 hours. That's over one resignation an hour, and it's been reported. I can't really remember the exact person, but it's been reported that a resignation of a cabinet member was declined or rejected. So that's also quite interesting. And because, of course, a spokesperson from Downing Street confirmed Mr. Johnson will make a statement on Thursday as we know, around midday, London time.
We're having to work around all these time zone differences, which is always a fun thing to try and juggle, but go on.
Yeah, the time zone stuff's a bit all out there. Anyway, so 55 government ministers quit, and several of his cabinet ministers, one sacking, including newly appointed Chancellor, or I'm gonna have to give a go at this name, Nadim Zahawi.
Nadim Sahari, I think it is, but I'm going off memory there. I don't have notes in front of me.
Yeah, so he released a statement probably around 8 o'clock London time, saying Boris Johnson must go now for the, quote, good of the country. So I reckon, do you think that was sort of the tipping point for Bojo to go?
I think it might be, because this came just a few minutes before we heard that that Johnson would go, and now we already knew there was pressure before. I'd been hearing on Sky News that a resignation letter was being prepared, but then after we actually get this statement from someone who was really just appointed to the role. So obviously that kind of piling on the pressure, and when you get people that you just appointed to fill a vacancy, and they're saying you have to go. I mean, what other choice do you have? You're running out of ministers at that stage. I mean, it's almost comical in a way. Just how fast these resignations have happened. How soon they've happened too in this 48-hour-ish period.
And I guess as you mentioned, comical, because how can you really manage on 50 plus resignations? Like, that's just crazy, right? Like, just incredible. And also the Parliament, I just read something earlier. It's expected, rather, to go on like summer break in 2 weeks. So
yeah, so we don't get a new Prime Minister potentially till autumn, which is obviously spring our time, which seems quite a while to have an interim. Now the thing is, as I was discussing with Dan Pizarro before, who will that interim be? Will Boris Johnson continue, or will they just find some guy to fill for a few weeks? We don't know. Might I remind viewers, Spin Check with Austin Pollock interviewing Greens MP member for Griffith, Max Chandler. They're live right now on our YouTube channel. Switch over to that if you want. This coverage will continue in the meantime. So look, there's a lot happening, and Austin, I'll keep getting you to make sure my internet doesn't die here. Make sure to have you continuing to monitor the socials here. Do you have a phone in front of you, or your computer in front of you?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, I do.
I was gonna say, go. Oh, good, man. I was gonna say, check what's trending. Is this actually at a trending stage here? Because I don't see anything else being talked about.
What's happening? UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson set to resign as Conservative Party leader. BBC and Sky News report trending with Bojo and Boris.
Bojo, yes, also, that infamous nickname, ScoMo Albo Bojo.
That's got a good ring to it. The Labour leader for the Labour leader or opposition leader, I'm a bit unsure how their system really works. I'm just sort of still a bit new to UK politics. I'm still trying to.
Oh, look, that's why we should all have. If I recommend people play this stream. I recommend people keep watching live. But if you want, play this stream back an hour. We've got Dan Pizarro discussing the basics of this, because there's a lot of similarities. You know, this system was built on the UK Westminster system, but there's so many differences too in both voting and how things are run, and how this Prime Minister can be thrown out. We all know with leadership spills we can have them pretty often. You know, they really have a basic difference in simple terms of 12 months between it. They want to change it regardless. They don't need to change it now because Bojo's gone. Now, I'm reading comments from national reporter Austin Pollock. Austin, keep them coming. They're helping us fill time here. The senior Tories are already questioning whether PM Boris Johnson can even stay on till October, which is obviously autumn in the UK. So he might not even last then as an interim leader. And then opposition leader Keir Starmer, the Labour leader there, saying the resignation is good news. So, you know, we heard in that... No, all good. I was just going to say quickly, we heard in the House of Commons yesterday that we had opposition MPs chanting "Bye bye Boris" as the PMQs ended. I mean, that's just extraordinary, and he had just begun to lose more and more support from what I had been seeing. And again, I'm not pretending to be an expert here, but it's clear that his own party was just ditching him. It came with the no confidence motion, Partygate, scandal after scandal.
The Christmas party that during lockdown in, I think it was 2020 or 2021, it really just snowballed for the Conservatives. The Labour leader also adding what Austin Pollock said, to Keir Starmer. He said he was also unfit for the office, so resignation is good news, as Austin said there. So, yeah, there's that sort of anger towards him. It's very similar to what we saw with, now, former Prime Minister Scott Morrison, because the anger towards everyone, I've seen a lot on social media as well, you know, Bojo, Boris, all of that. Not many, you know, of course he got into Parliament. The tides have changed since then.
Yeah, and perhaps even more, similarly, if that's a word, you have to look back at what happened with, this might seem like ancient memory, but you look back at what happened with Tony Abbott and Malcolm Turnbull, who were spilled after being very unpopular in the polls. Now, of course, very different circumstances. They didn't have Partygate scandals and a pandemic and Brexit to deal with, but still, it's just... I keep using that word, but I'll use it again. Extraordinary how this is all played out in public view. And look, I was saying yesterday that surely he's gone. There's no way he could stay on. There'd be no government to run. The word collapsing just keeps being thrown around and around regarding what happened with the government. It's just really collapsed. There's barely a government to speak of there. Most of them are gone, except for senior ministers in roles that cannot be vacated, like a national security role involving MI5. They're gone. And so it's kind of expected that this would all play out. Now, Roman, this is what happens when you've been going for too long in an unexpected live stream. Roman, this is interesting because... And excuse the sirens there for people hearing, that's just in the stream. If you think about what Dan Pizzaro and I were saying, it's really interesting because the UK only has elections, apart from when there's an early election, but it's scheduled every 5 years. So the next one is supposed to be, 2024. Ours are 3 years federally, 4 years for most, if not all, states and territories, I believe, although I think it might be 3 for the territories, 4 for the states, so I'll have to check, but I know at least it's 4.
I was just going to say, even a 3-year term is a long time. Of course, we saw at the federal election, everything happened, bushfires, floods, a global pandemic, you know. So much has changed since 2019.
And just think of when Tony Abbott and Malcolm Turnbull were in office, you know. Sometimes they couldn't even complete terms. They were just kicked out. They spill after spill. You know, this is making me long for the days of when there were spills. We could all cover that. But again, I do remember covering Theresa May's resignation for whatever reason that was. Now look at us 3 years later, covering this. I'm gonna butcher this name. Dmitry Peskov, spokesperson for the Russian government, said he, referring to Johnson, doesn't like us, we don't like him either. So a real, not a very gracious or diplomatic comment, some might say.
But who only
Of course,
one,
but then
no one
they,
else
they
would really.
I think most leaders Russia would respond like that too if they're significant enough, bar a few really. But yeah, it seems it'll be interesting to see. I imagine Anthony Albanese might be a bit more diplomatic, some might say, when I'm sure he'll release a statement sometime tomorrow, even potentially later tonight. We're not expecting one, but it's a possibility. Rona, I think that's about it because there's not much else to discuss here in terms of what's happening with the reaction, but really interesting. We can keep following that reaction, and let me just remind viewers, Spin Check, you can watch on demand right now. That's on our YouTube channel. I don't need to say search 6 News 8, you'll find us because you're watching us on YouTube now, so just click that button. But yeah.
Just before I'm gonna go. Jason Groves, political editor from the Daily Mail, says this was tweeted 30 minutes ago. Boris Johnson will be writing his own resignation speech on past form at the Telegraph. He'll probably miss his deadline. I'm not really sure what that means, but yeah, pretty interesting to how these events have unfolded, and of course, yeah, thanks for having me on.
No, always good to chat there, Roman McKinnon, our political reporter, usually covering Australian politics there, but we've shoved him on the international role here for a variety of reasons, and I'm sure you people can understand why here at home. That we've moved around resources. Okay, look, I'm gonna probably have my mic still live because I can't seem to figure out how to turn that off, which is unfortunate. But stay tuned. We're gonna listen to some music. I'll be back with some commentary in a moment. You are watching 6 News live as Boris Johnson resigns as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Welcome back. You're watching 6 News Live. It's just past 8:30 Eastern on the east coast of Australia. That's PM, of course. And if you are joining us in London, if you just happen to be joining us in London, you're watching us at about 11:30 PM local time in the UK. Thanks for listening to that music there. That's the best we can do without getting copyright strike. You know we'd be playing Little Dark Age if we could, but we can't, so that's what you're stuck with. It's a great song, by the way. You should all listen to it. It's it's best song of the 21st century. I have nothing else to talk about, so let's just continue this coverage. I hope that the audio is nice and clear before. Bit echoey. Okay, yeah, we'll work to fix that audio. Just a moment. What I just wanna establish is these reports. There we go. We're gonna try to fix that now. Excuse me. What we're trying to establish here is what's happening while we wait for Boris Johnson to speak. Now we're expecting him to speak at midday, which is in a 25 odd minutes, but what we're hearing right now from our national reporter Austin Pollock, Johnson has appointed a full replacement cabinet. Now again, this comes after 53 resignations and a sacking that happened just before we went on air, and that's kind of what prompted us to hear that he would resign. So Austin is continuing to monitor that. Look, we might actually call some people throughout this time, but we are definitely continuing to monitor this. So look, we might come back to Roman McKinnon in a moment, but let's just listen in just quickly to the situation there and what's being heard there. And by the way, if you heard some echo, we are fixing that again. We're a one-man band in the producer slide. So again, there are dozens of cameramen and reporters out there right now monitoring this situation. Let's zoom in there. No cat, unfortunately, and I'm disappointed at that too. There's no cat actually out there and monitoring the situation at number 10. We wish Larry the cat was out there, but unfortunately, he's not. So what we're going to do in a second, we're going to bring in, again, Roman McKinnon, political reporter at 6 News. Usually focused on Australian politics, but desperate times here at 6 News call for desperate measures. So I'm kidding. We're gonna bring him in. He's just usually not the UK politics guy. Well, none of us are the UK politics guy. By the way, keep having your questions in the live chat. We'll do our best to answer them right here on stream. But we're gonna do this again. We're gonna cold call Roman. It's again like we're on the damn radio. So we're gonna try to make sure we get him here. He is of course our political reporter Roman McKinnon, and he's been doing a great job monitoring this. Roman, you're live on the air again. Be warned. So there's a lot happening. We've just heard he's attempting to appoint a full cabinet replacement even before he's actually spoken and formally announced this resignation. What's going on?
Yeah, well, I'm just reading, according to the BBC, as Austin Pollock pointed out, he's expected to appoint new ministers shortly. A number 10 source has told PA News Agency. Of course, set to resign. He will be resigning, but still hopes to remain as Prime Minister until autumn, which is the Southern Hemisphere's spring. So that's still a few months away. Two months.
Yeah, they're in summer right now. For those who are unaware, obviously July just started, so we're really only halfway through summer/winter, meaning we're kind of nowhere near the situation where we're going to have Johnson actually formally gone. Although, as we said, someone could be an interim in the replacement.
Yeah, well, I'll just mention those the front runners for those replacements in a sec, but I just want to read out this quote from a number 10 source from telling a PA agency, saying, quote, "The Prime Minister will shortly make new appointments to his ministerial team," end quote. Not really much like subject there, but I guess, and I also I'm going to sort of answer Fruit Snacks in the chat question here. It says, very curious to see, well, it's not really a question, it's a statement, but very curious to see if there are a lot of ministers who resigned in the new cabinet. Well, I guess it can be, but if there are any more resignations, it could sort of stem. If you can see me right now, I'm doing all these like Italian hand movements. It's super
Yeah. Oh, we can't see you. That's about. Oh, I do it too, man. But unfortunately, we can't see you because for those who aren't aware, and I'll get back to you in a moment. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we don't have a producer here. I'm producing, live streaming, anchoring this thing because this is what happens when you're a small team. If you'd like to support us, by the way, head to patreon.com/6newsau. Just $4 a month for exclusive benefits. Link in the chat, in the description as well. Patreon.com/6newsau. That's the numeral, not the word Roman. Continue.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, if there are any more resignations, if someone's not happy with, saying they're not going to get a cabinet, we don't know that cabinet just yet, but they haven't announced it yet, but they've confirmed according to the BBC. But
yeah, it's still very early days in terms of the future of the UK government, which I guess some might say has just completely collapsed. In 24 hours, the UK government has essentially collapsed with more than 50 resignations. I mean, obviously they have many more members than us in Parliament and both in government. But imagine if, the equivalent, the percentage equivalent, was had that many resignations in Australia. I mean, for goodness sake. By the way, we're just hearing from the political editor of the Daily Mirror, Pippa Creera. I butchered that. Sorry, Pippa. That Downing Street sources suggest outgoing Prime Minister Boris Johnson is tweaking his resignation statement with some concern he might not actually read out what was prepared, which is really interesting. His final act or whatever as a leader here that he just acts like that. So look, that'd be truly interesting. Boris expected to give a statement in about an hour and a half. Go on though.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to touch on the few contenders for the Conservatives. Because,
yeah, go ahead.
Of course, Boris Johnson resigning, so this is according to ABC News. UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, the front runner among the Conservatives, regularly topped polls of party members carried out by the website Conservative Home. Don't know what that means. And former
no one does.
Security Jeremy Hunt, he finished second in the 2019 leadership contest, and it says he would offer a more, quote, serious and less controversial style of leadership rather than the turmoil of Boris Johnson. There are also read out another one. Defence Secretary Ben Wallace has risen in recent months to be a very popular member of the government with Conservative Party members, thanks to his handling of the Ukraine crisis. So that's pretty interesting as well. And before I let you speak, sorry.
No, all good. Please, still time.
On Larry the Cat's tweet, it's got 30,000 likes. It says, it was a quote tweet, so 4 hours ago, Larry the Cat tweeted, if Boris Johnson hasn't resigned by 10 a.m., which was 10, which was 7 o'clock our time. If Boris Johnson hasn't resigned by 10 a.m., I will be forced to crap in his shoes. Hashtag Downing Street siege. And then 2 hours ago, he said, "That did the job. No need to thank me."
Oh,
A bit savage there.
yeah.
Very, very, very savage. I was just looking at the replies. Larry for PM and all of that stuff. But yeah, I guess his fate as not a person, but a prime minister. Will he be able to hold it off until autumn or spring?
Yeah, and as I was discussing with Dan Pizarro, I mean, is he even going to stay in the parliament, you know, or will we see a by-election? I mean, that'd be an interesting situation. I can imagine he'd be moving into a by-election type situation. Boris Johnson expected to speak around 10 p.m. Eastern. It's around 1 p.m. local, which is not what we were initially expecting, which kind of sucks.
An hour and 15 more fill time. Great, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, who knows? Look, we might wrap it up in about 15 minutes and then continue our coverage on social media, which of course we will continue, might we add. There's still so much that needs to be unpacked and developed. It's just a matter of when we're essentially a 1 to 2 man band here at times. You know, there's only so much you can cover. Roman, we mentioned, I just want to reiterate what we were talking about before, so we'd expect Anthony Albanese to probably say something tomorrow morning?
Yeah, I would assume so, that there's something released by his team on that, because if he doesn't release something, then that, firstly, it'd be weird, and secondly,
Very.
Journalists would quiz him about it, which I'm sure he wouldn't mind talking about. Also, I'm seeing another tweet here. It says, it's an email, it's not to me. It says, "It is with apologies that we'll be cancelling this evening's reception at Downing Street. We appreciate your understanding. Kind regards, Downing Street events team." So it was a reception for international media, so later on.
Oh, what a time. What a time.
I also saw a school tour happening in the background of the BBC's coverage earlier, so pretty interesting there.
Really, a school tour?
A very eventful sort of day. People rushing around here and there. Yeah, so I would want to be one of those students for sure. And thanks, Austin, for that.
Yeah, we just heard, I'll repeat that news that we just heard from Austin there. Labour leader Keir Starmer threatening to table a confidence motion, so essentially no confidence motion on Boris Johnson if he clings on after he's resigned as Tory leader, a Conservative leader that is. Tories, Conservatives we're going to use interchangeably here, which is really interesting that we're having those threats made. We still haven't had Boris Johnson speaking, which is obviously a shame for all of us who have been wanting to see something happen instead of us constantly ranting like this. But you know, and we saw him yesterday inside the Prime Minister's PMQ's Prime Minister's questions, and we had him, you know, under a lot of pressure. I know Parliament, I think, was live before. Unfortunately, it's not now, so we cannot show you a stream like that, which sucks. But nevertheless, we're continuing here for the moment. We're just looking at Downing Street again. We will probably zoom in, and you can see that door where, you know, we expect soonish Boris Johnson to come out and say something, anything, but whatever he says, it's a formal resignation. And then that'll be it for Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. That'll be his time as Prime Minister done, his very controversial time as Prime Minister, sometimes praised, sometimes slammed for a variety of things. He's the Prime Minister that delivered Brexit. He's also the Prime Minister who's been accused of lying to the Queen, misleading the Parliament, lying about parties, lying about Pincher, the alleged groper MP they have there. Unpopular with some colleagues, very popular with others, known on the world stage as a British Trump, and one of 3 key popular leaders that is set to go. First Trump, then Morrison, now Boris. So, an extraordinary set of events happening in the UK right now, especially when we go back to yesterday, where we had 53 resignations today, rather, I should say, and yesterday we had many more. Obviously, Roman, neither of us are experts here, but you've seen the mood from some people in the UK, and we've seen that the Labour leader there is obviously pouncing on these. Given the amount of anger or just support lost for Boris Johnson, if there was an election held today, do you reckon the Conservatives would stay in power or not?
I don't think so. I think but it's kind of hard to predict at the same time because, well, A, we're not really in that environment because we're on the other side of the world, and number 2, because of the divisiveness between the Conservative Party, some people love him, some people hate him. It's a love-hate sort of situation.
Yeah, exactly, and it's quite extraordinary. Anything else being talked about on socials? I imagine this is still trending.
Yeah, I've just got a tweet from Therese Coffey, which is the Conservative MP for Suffolk Coastal.
They have these weird constituency names, but yeah, continue.
Yeah, she said, I asked to speak to the PM yesterday evening and still hoped to do so today. I fully understand colleagues' concerns and the very bad situation we are now in. The wheels of government need, though, to keep turning, especially at DWP, I'm assuming that's Downing Street, which helps the most vulnerable in society. Please
what was that, WP?
DWP.
Oh, DWP. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. But yeah, go on. This is what happens when neither of us are experts, but know a little about the situation. Oh, sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say for our viewers watching on the stream, our live stream. Our live stream hasn't dropped out. The pool feed has decided to drop out again. That's completely out of our control, might we add? Blame, I think, Reuters for that. I don't know, but yeah, it's truly a unique situation. What was she saying again? Sorry, I cut you off there.
That's okay. So she said, I'll just skip it through a bit of it. So she said, she wanted to speak to the Prime Minister yesterday evening and still hope to do so today. I'm not really sure if she is with Boris Johnson or against. And
seems a bit mixed.
Yeah, the wheels of the government need to keep turning, especially at DWP, Downing Street, I don't know, which helps the most vulnerable in society. I've also got something...
no clue really what that means, but yeah.
Yeah.
DWP.
So, Boris Johnson's former top advisor, Dominic Cummings, said...
stream's back, sorry. The feed's back for every... Oh! And it's dropped out again. Never mind, please continue.
That's okay. So, Boris Johnson's former top advisor, he said he warns of carnage. So, in a tweet, he said, evict today or he'll cause carnage. Even now, he's playing for time and will try to stay. No, quote, dignity, no interim while leadership contest. I don't know. I think he made a typo. RAB should be interim Prime Minister.
That might be, look, who knows, that honestly, that could be an MP's name. They have a lot of MPs, so, it's a certain, possibility, who knows,
Sorry, you go.
No, you go.
Oh, okay, I was just going to say, and of course, the political experts in the UK, the Europe correspondents, one said that Boris Johnson, quote, vote cannot survive this political crisis. So more and more of Boris Johnson's colleagues have been coming to Downing Street to say they, quote, no longer support him. So Nick Dole from the ABC said, quote, after days of desperately trying to cling to power, the Prime Minister has come to the conclusion that most of colleagues already have, that his time here at number 10 is up, that he cannot survive this political crisis. It's really a political thunderstorm for this Conservative Party.
Labour leader, opposition leader Keir Starmer saying, we need a Labour government. That's what he's been saying. Not exactly an unexpected statement from there. But we also see the tally of resignations is 59. I assume that includes one sacking. It's 53 when this stream began, 54 when this stream began, 59 now.
59, wow.
59. But yeah, no, all good. I am looking forward to seeing what the front pages of the newspapers in the UK will look like tomorrow. It was this morning, The Guardian saying desperate. Oh, there's our live stream back. The Guardian this morning, desperate, deluded Prime Minister clings to power. That was the UK Guardian. That's their print. And The Sun in the UK, exclusive, defiant Boris's message to Tory rebels: you'll have to dip your hands in blood to get rid of me. And he's gone. So yeah, look, it's quite an extraordinary situation here. Something I was imagining yesterday and imagined happening, but I'm still amazed. By the way, Rab is apparently the Deputy Prime Minister. So, thank you, live chat. Yeah. But it's an extraordinary thing to happen. And I reckon the ramifications, for the UK Conservative Party are going to be huge. Let's remember they've had 3 prime ministers since coming into office. Last decade, which was of course David Cameron, Theresa May, and Boris Johnson. You have to wonder, can they really survive for another 5-year term? Obviously, it was a bit different when there was the early elections, but still, Boris Johnson. I mean, it's.
I don't see that possible of even really a Conservative. I mean, Boris Johnson indefinitely, no way at all that he will be a Prime Minister for the next 5 years, because number one, 5 years is a very long term, and also, he's resigned, of course. So, also, Leo, should we talk about this eventful week in UK politics, because the secretaries have changed a bit. Daniel Hewitt from ITV News is a political correspondent. He said that the UK education secretaries a short history. Tuesday it was Nadim Zahawi. On Wednesday it was Michelle Donlan, and Thursday it was James Cleavery. Three secretaries in 3 days.
We're referring to the US, the UK days there, but they're fairly similar. Again, it's Thursday there, it's Thursday here. It's all a matter of exactly when on Thursday. Excuse me, you might have heard a notification there if you're listening on the stream. Roman, I just want to quickly, and I don't think you'll be able to hear this, but our viewers will. Let's just have a listen, just briefly, to what Keir Starmer, the Labour leader, the opposition leader there, had to say, speaking to Sky News.
Who's going to unite this Conservative Party? They're tearing each other apart. And what we've got in the middle of a cost of living crisis is a government that can't function. And that's why I say he can't cling on now. They've declared him unfit to be Prime Minister. They can't inflict him on the country for the next few months. If they don't get rid of him, we will bring that vote of no confidence in the national interest, because we can't go on with this broken government led by this discredited Prime Minister.
Broken government led by a discredited Prime Minister. Choice words there from Keir Starmer, the Labour opposition leader, there again making that no confidence threat in the Parliament. He'll try to bring along that. You can foresee that potentially playing out, but again, that's a real wait and see situation.
Leo, we've got a Larry the Cat tweet, alright? So it says Cameron, so there's crosses through their name. So Cameron, I think it's not Theresa Cameron, it's Theresa May, isn't it?
Yeah, David Cameron and Theresa May.
Yep, so it was David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, all with crosses through their name. I've seen them all off. Larry the Cat's going out at that time. That's pretty intense.
Strong words.
Yeah, I guess, I'm not sure if we spoke about this before. Labour leader Keir Starmer, he said he threatens to table a confidence. We did speak about this, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we just heard him say it.
Yeah, alright.
No, all good. It's hard because we have to keep going over the same things because, again, Boris Johnson was supposed to speak now. According to our national producer, Christian Penny, expected to speak in about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Oh, alright, well, look.
It's now midday in London, so, yeah.
Yeah, alright, well, look, I think the best we can do right here is wrap it up because there's not much we can wait. Now, we're not going to go live for the Boris Johnson stream. What we are going to do is follow that on social media. So, Roman, thank you very much. You'll keep monitoring that on social media. Roman McKinnon, political reporter there. But what we are going to do is wrap it up now. We are going to have the latest developments on this situation on social media. So you can continue following us. Social media, 6 News AU. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Lit for the latest developments there 24/7. I have plenty more tomorrow. We'll have more analysis on our website. And we are going to continue following that, of course, more on our Sunday night news bulletin. Now, I understand people saying, no, don't end. But look, guys, it's 9 p.m. Eastern where I am. This is what we call prolonged agony. We're just saying the same things over and over again at this point. Unless, oh, this is going to be a fast turnaround. This is a bad look for me, isn't it? They're talking about Boris Johnson trying to fill cabinet, then announce his resignation. He wants to stay on as caretaker until November, is what we're hearing. Sky UK reporting PM speaking in 30 minutes. Oh. Alright, we'll stay. We're going to continue our coverage because if he's speaking in 30, if he doesn't speak by maybe 9:35, we're going to wrap it up. Because this is getting to a point of ridiculousness. Because it seems to be dragging out this little dark age moment for the UK Conservatives, where we've got Dominic Raab. He's a potential caretaker candidate. There's 2 scenarios here, is what I'm being told here. One, Boris tries to fill cabinet, then announces his resignation, but stays on as caretaker till November. The other, resigns and leaves with with Dominic Raab, the deputy, is a potential caretaker. If you want us to stay live, by the way, continue to let us know in the chat. The issue is, from what we understand here, that he can't fill a government because these are all ministers who have resigned. 59 resigned or sacked. 58, I think, resigned, 1 sacked, which is an extraordinary amount. You're looking at 10 Downing Street here, where Boris Johnson will be speaking in front of sometime in the future. When that sometime is, we don't know, because this seems to, as I say, just be dragging on, and we were expecting him to speak about five-ish minutes ago, a bit less actually, where we were going to have him say something, but obviously he's not saying something. Now, what we understand is the 2 biggest roles, obviously, apart from Prime Minister, the Defence Secretary and the Home Secretary cannot resign. They have to have filled positions. Now, we already know in regards to defence and home and security and things like that, I think one of the security ministers, or at least a junior, have quit, so there's not even a junior here. Now, they have to stay on even if they're against Boris Johnson, and that is purely because they're such important roles. And so we're gonna stay with this because our viewers seem to want it. Now, there's other roles like education, which some might say is important, but less important. So the minister can actually quit cabinet there. But in terms of actual roles, and again, this goes back to the whole Westminster system that the UK has, really, that we can have this kind of situation where we're getting these resignations, but also places where you can't have resignations here. Thank you for continuing to tune in, by the way. We're really struggling to fill time for this half an hour, but if the people want it, we sort of have to go on. So yeah. What are your thoughts on Boris Johnson, by the way? Whether you know much or not much, let us know in the comments. We'll read some of them out. German Silver says he provoked a prolonged war in Ukraine, wrecked the UK economy, created a recession in the UK. They should wait for him to resign and bring criminal charges against this a-hole. Strong words there. Let us know your thoughts. Comment section right now. Live chat. Also use that hashtag 6NewsAU. This is an extraordinary moment. Boris Johnson has a bad haircut, says something else. Says someone else. But yeah, it's it's definitely a lot of strong opinions on Boris Johnson on all sides, I guess you could say. He's very popular with some people, very unpopular with others. Look, we might go back to Roman McKinnon soon. I emphasize might there, because we're continuing to pad out time here as we wait for Boris Johnson to speak. So look, we are seeing these UK appointments actually being made now. So let's go through them. This is actually significant. Look, I might try to bring up a live feed. Bear with us, people. We're really trying to hold through this. So look, give us a moment. We will we'll be with you. Yeah, let's actually play some music in the meantime. Why not? Stay with 6 News. Back in a sec. You're back. I'm Leonardo Puglisi in the 6 News Studios. Look, we're gonna take a look, and I'm gonna be conscious to not open my messages while doing this. But this is the Twitter feed of of Downing Street, the official page for Boris Johnson's office. They call him the Prime Minister there. We'll see how long that lasts. But yeah. You can see we got a bunch of new appointments there. So the Right Honourable Kit Malthouse appointed as Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. I have no idea what that means. I'm going to be fully honest with you people. I don't know. The Right Honourable Sir Robert Buckland, Secretary of State for Wales. That's self-explanatory. Right Honourable James Cleverly, appointed the Secretary of State for Education. The Right Honourable Greg... I love that phrase. Right Honourable. Right Honourable Greg Clark, appointed as Secretary of State for Levelling Up Housing and Communities. Right Honourable Michelle Donlan, appointed Secretary of State for Education. Right Honourable Steve Barclay, appointed Secretary of State for Health and Social Care. Right Honourable Nadeem Salhawi, appointed Chancellor of the... whatever the hell it is. That was yesterday. But the most recent one, actually, would be... And my mouse is frozen. This is great. We're stuck. The most recent one is this. Greg Clark, appointed Secretary of State for Levelling Up Housing and Communities. James Cleverly, Secretary of State for Education. Robert Buckland, Secretary of State for Wales. Kit Malthouse, Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. Oh, there we go. That one just came in. You're seeing that live. Salish Vara has been appointed Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. So that is all just happening there right now. Some really extraordinary developments. And we remind you, Boris Johnson has not formally resigned, which is quite amazing to see how this is all playing out. That he's still there. He hasn't resigned. Thank you, Daniel. I'm bad at pronunciation. So yeah, we're continuing this live coverage. I'm continuing to rant. The Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster is the second highest ranking minister in the Cabinet Office, immediately after the Prime Minister. Okay, it is an important role. Never mind. It's 9:11 Australian Eastern Standard Time. We're expecting the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson to speak about 11 minutes ago. That has obviously not happened. To make sure I don't accidentally broadcast an entire Twitter feed here, let's go back to the earlier feed outside Downing Street, which you've been hearing throughout this live broadcast, as we just wait for Boris Johnson to speak. We don't know when he will. I mean, I'm sure he has to at some stage, but in terms of the exact details, I could not give you an ETA. By the way, any support is appreciated. So we want that support, obviously. Patreon.com/6newsau. Just $4 a month. You'll receive exclusive benefits, early access to major announcements. Also a podcast with WAMN News. That's East plus West. That is patreon.com/6newsau. The link is in the bio and the live chat. Sincerely appreciate any support available. $4 a month or a custom amount higher than that of your choosing, which we would all appreciate, because this team obviously get a bit of YouTube ad money, but I don't even know if this stream is being monetized. So we don't like to rely on that. We're not in it for the money. We're not in it for the money. But yeah. Sorry, Tim Hocking. I seem to go too far back in the feed. That might be why you saw some old, outdated stuff there. So apologies for any of that. Seems we lost the audio feed there. That is not on our end. You're still seeing a video feed. I don't think it's frozen. I think that is still a live current feed. To play it safe, we're gonna put up a standby, but yeah, we're definitely, busy covering all this. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's definitely a live feed. Getting a bit of static in the background, so apologies for anything like that. But that is definitely a live feed. It'll be interesting. Asian activist says it'll be interesting to see how this affects Australia's relationship with the UK. Yeah, well, we were speaking to Roman McKinnon about that earlier, and definitely, Boris Johnson only met with Anthony Albanese once, the new Prime Minister here, Anthony Albanese, in person, that is. Gave him a gift, Rabbitohs. We discussed the NRL, that was a few minutes ago, but, yeah. Stay with this live stream as we continue our coverage. Now, we've been getting a lot of questions in terms of when Boris Johnson is expected to speak. We're now hearing that he is going to step down as leader of the Conservative Party and continue as Prime Minister until the next leader is elected. That's according to both the BBC and Sky UK. Now, ahead of the Prime Minister's statement to the country, new cabinet posts have been appointed. Again, Kit Malthouse as Chancellor for Duchy of Lancaster. Just under 60 MPs have resigned since Tuesday. Quite an extraordinary figure. So yeah, that's quite amazing there. So he's going to step down as leader of the UK Conservative Party. In terms of what this means with Prime Ministership, we don't exactly know yet. Stay with this. The video feed is moving. That's good to hear. Stay with this live stream. We're going to play some music again, because I like doing that. It fills time. Why can't a 6 News reporter go live with you? I'm not going to tie them all out. There's not much to say here. Best enough. We've had lots of analysis. The person who we've spoken to most tonight, who knows the most about the UK, is Daniel Pizarro, freelancer. But yeah, stay with 6 News. Well, we're continuing this live stream. You're listening to some music. You are watching 10 Downing Street in London as Boris Johnson resigns. Welcome back, you're staying with 6 News Live. My mic might have been unmuted then. Again, this is what happens when you're relying on yourself to produce. So Boris Johnson expected to speak shortly. We've heard 10 PM Eastern, but we've also heard 9:30 Eastern. We've heard even later than that. Someone we are going to bring in is someone we heard at the top of the broadcast, top of the live stream, top of the coverage. Friend of the show, friend of the program, friend of the network, Daniel Pizarro, journalist, who's pretty much going to be our expert on the UK tonight, because none of us are really as aware of this as he is. So we're going to call him now. It's a cold call, might I add. So Daniel, I hope you're watching and know to be quiet. But Daniel Pizarro is in. Actually, where are you, Daniel?
I'm currently in Sydney, as I'm currently the chief international correspondent for one of the American television stations at the moment. So at the moment it's just gone 9:19 p.m. Sydney time, and usually I'll be covering a lot of Asia Pacific stuff, but yes, time to cover the UK for first time in a bit.
Oh, well, look, we all find it fun. We all find it entertaining. At least I do. So look, it's really interesting, and again, you seem to be more of an expert than anyone else here tonight. So I'll let you say what I have no idea on, for obvious reasons. Because you know, it's always easy to just say things, but you know, sometimes you actually know very little on them, so it's good because you're a bit of an expert here. I was gonna say, in terms of your expertise, I mean, where'd you get all this knowledge from? Because you seem to know a fair bit about UK local politics.
I've always been interested in politics for many years, so it's quite, like, I find it quite fascinating, especially when you see things like the downfall of Margaret Thatcher, or you have...
a bit before my time then.
Yeah. I was only a toddler when that happened, but there's a lot of things that have happened throughout British political history for me, particularly the period in the 1970s when a lot of things were very chaotic, and you had a number of elections, you had a lot of problems like violence in Northern Ireland, you had many issues going on in the UK, and often the best way that was seen to try and fix this election, the issue was a snap election, and there were quite a few that were going on in the 1970s and into the 80s, and I've always been fascinated. Like, one of my personal political heroes is the then Labour leader of during the 83 election, Michael Foot. He was a journalist. He was someone who was absolutely vital in getting rid of Neville Chamberlain after during the Second World War. He's for me, he's one of my political heroes, and that was a very fascinating and very unstable era, and now we're seeing a very similar unstable era right here in front of our eyes.
I don't know what else you'd call, almost 60 ministers resigning, other than unstable. I mean, it's not exactly stable by any means. It's just an extraordinary thing. So look, we've heard conflicting statements about when he's going to speak. We initially heard it would be about 20 minutes ago. Now we're hearing it'll be about 10 minutes, and we've also heard it'll be about 40 minutes. But we're staying on now because it might be in 10 minutes. I'm interested because I've been hearing, and I've been fed information from our producers off air. I'm actually producing the live stream for those unaware. But we're hearing that he's going to step down as leader of the Conservative Party. Which obviously is slightly different to stepping down as the Prime Minister, but he'll continue as Prime Minister till we get a next leader elected, and then we're also having appointments come in live on Twitter, as people saw a few minutes ago. We're just seeing these appointments come in live. In simple terms, why are we getting these appointments? Are we expecting some? No, sorry, that is someone fixing the mic stand. But that means Boris Johnson is about to speak in the next 5 minutes.
Yes, we're expecting. I'm hearing within a couple of minutes. So
stay tuned. But go on. In terms of basic, what does this mean when we're having these cabinet appointments happening right now as Boris Johnson is about to resign?
Well, the big thing is that as I've been redoing my own report for American television, I got word that two ex-ministers who haven't said their names said that Boris Johnson should resign as Prime Minister and leader of the Conservative Party immediately and let the Deputy Prime Minister, Dominic Raab, take over in the interim. So these cabinet appointments that he has just made, that I've been seeing also been announced on Twitter, are a sign that Boris Johnson wants to stay on as Prime Minister. It's him trying to dig his heels in for the last couple of weeks, few months, no more. Then of course we'll have the Conservative Party leadership election results actually done. Because if he was to resign straight from both positions straight away, we would have probably Dominic Raab in as the interim party leader and interim Prime Minister until there's a formal successor.
Could you
in place.
Could you imagine him staying on as the permanent Prime Minister post this whole interim period that we're expecting to have?
It has. It's not been. It's not been very common when a deputy prime minister has eventually become prime minister. He has been one. He is certainly one of the most prominent people who could succeed Boris Johnson if he decides to go for the leadership position. And we know that it should be very important to note that the post of Deputy Prime Minister in the UK is very different to the post of Deputy Prime Minister in Australia. The post of Deputy Prime Minister here is a cabinet position. In the UK, it's bestowed upon a member of the government at the discretion of the Prime Minister. And it doesn't necessarily mean that automatically that if a Prime Minister resigns, it will go straight to the Deputy Prime Minister. Usually the Deputy Prime Minister of the UK functions when, if the Prime Minister is overseas, the Deputy Prime Minister is in charge of Prime Minister's question time and acts in his capacity if the Prime Minister
So sort of
is
similar
sick
in at least that regard to what we might have with an acting Prime Minister.
Yes, but there's no guarantees that if say, for example, straight away, if Boris Johnson announced he's resigning effective immediately as Prime Minister, there's no mechanism that means that Dominic Raab would become the acting Prime Minister straight away. You have to remember that you've got to listen to what the Prime Minister will be advising the Queen on who on who should be able to lead the government until there be a proper leadership election. And that leadership contest could drag on depending on how many candidates there are. But we do know, of course, that there is the definite desire to have a new leader and therefore a new Prime Minister in place before the Conservative Party's annual conference, which is due in October. So the question is, of course, how long will this leadership contest last and how many people will actually be interested in competing? Because this will be a very possibly bitter contest.
Absolutely. I'm conscious on time here, and our viewers are watching right now. Staff seem to be assembled. We're seeing the podium set up for Boris Johnson. So, who knows, we might have to cut you off mid-sentence at one point, but it's about 3 minutes to 9:30 Eastern. That's about, 12:30 their time in London. I'd been hearing some reports and been fed some information from a variety of sources that he's been late because he's still working on a speech. He might not read what's been prepared and written, which would be an interesting way to go out as Prime Minister.
This is Boris Johnson. Timing and just how he acts has never been to most conventions, and that has been Boris Johnson down to a T for decades. But that's also at the same time been one of his greatest follies because of just how susceptible him and his government have been to all these massive controversies recently. I'm not surprised it's been taking him a little bit longer to draw up the resignation letter and prepare to make the statement. But this is basically what I'm very interested to see, of course, is within this resignation. announcement, what he will say, but also what he will not say.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's going to be one of the most important things.
Yeah, and apologies because we're hearing some not on your end, Daniel, but they're testing the mic, so that is coming through on our end. And when you're producing and angry at the same time, it's always hard to adjust. I just quickly again. He's about to speak, conscious on time here, but we always heard that his kind of buffhead persona, his kind of daggy, and this goes back to Scott Morrison too, but his kind of comical approach, people always said it was all an act, you know? It was trying to get him likeable, which is, you know, a really interesting take, but yeah, well, and you know, I think we all seen that video. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, where he comes out to reporters after some scandal and he's offering them like tea or something, and that kind of act, some would describe it as, which I guess has been kind of one of the most defining things of his time as Prime Minister, more so than what he actually did even with the scandals on Brexit.
Well, it's the same thing. He's been doing these kind of antics and acts like since he was mayor of London. Remember, he's been up in the sky doing bizarre little stunts. He's done weird dances. He's been someone like with,
didn't he get stuck on a live wire or something wild?
That's one of the most infamous examples. Being like that, just waving a little flag around while he's been suspended in the air. This is someone who knows how to put on a show and an act, despite his very daggy appearance. But he's someone who has been able to get people to notice him. But that's really not. In this case, this is not working in his favour. We know once his successor has been decided, that will be the fourth Prime Minister in 6 years, which is not a good sign of a stable government.
No, and we think ours is interesting. Our changing of Prime Minister. Sorry, might have been cut off there again with that audio test, but let's just remember the whole situation we've had in Australia. You know, 2010 we had Gillard come in after Rudd. 2013 Rudd comes back for a very brief amount of time. 2015 Turnbull takes over from Abbott. 2018 Morrison takes over from Turnbull, and then Morrison managed to stay on without a spill, which I thought was amazing. And of course Albo's here now, so I guess we've been longing for some kind of leadership crisis, and it just comes from the UK instead of us. So look, it's bizarre. The door's opening now. Boris Johnson is speaking. Let's listen in.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you. It is clearly now the will of the Parliamentary Conservative Party that there should be a new leader of that party and therefore a new Prime Minister. And I've agreed with Sir Graham Brady, the chairman of our backbench MPs, that the process of choosing that new leader should begin now. And the timetable will be announced next week. And I've today appointed a cabinet to serve, as I will, until a new leader is in place. So I want to say to the millions of people who voted for us in 2019, many of them voting Conservative for the first time, thank you for that incredible mandate, the biggest Conservative majority since 1987, the biggest share of the vote since 1979. And the reason I have fought so hard in the last few days to continue to deliver that mandate in person was not just because I wanted to do so, but because I felt it was my job, my duty, my obligation to you to continue to do what we promised in 2019. And of course, I'm immensely proud of the achievements of this government, from getting Brexit done to settling our relations with the continent for over half a century, reclaiming the power for this country to make its own laws in Parliament, getting us all through the pandemic, delivering the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe, the fastest exit from lockdown, and in the last few months, leading the West in standing up to Putin's aggression in Ukraine. And let me say now to the people of Ukraine that I know that we in the UK will continue to back your fight for freedom for as long as it takes. And at the same time, in this country, we've been pushing forward a vast programme of investment in infrastructure and skills and technology, the biggest in a century, because if I have one insight into human beings, it is that genius and talent and enthusiasm and imagination are evenly distributed throughout the population, but opportunity is not. And that's why we must keep levelling up, keep unleashing the potential of every part of the United Kingdom. And if we can do that in this country, we will be the most prosperous in Europe. And in the last few days, I've tried to persuade my colleagues that it would be eccentric to change governments when we're delivering so much, and when we have such a vast mandate, and when we're actually only a handful of points behind in the polls, even in mid-term after quite a few months of pretty relentless sledging, and when the economic scene is so difficult domestically and internationally. And I regret not to have been successful in those arguments, and of course it's painful not to be able to see through so many ideas and projects myself. But as we've seen at Westminster, the herd instinct is powerful, and when the herd moves, it moves. And my friends, in politics, no one is remotely indispensable. And our brilliant and Darwinian system will produce another leader equally committed to taking this country forward through tough times, not just helping families to get through it, but changing and improving the way we do things, cutting burdens on businesses and families, and yes, cutting taxes, because that is the way to generate the growth and the income we need to pay for great public services. And to that new leader, I say, whoever he or she may be, I say I will give you as much support as I can. And to you, the British public, I know that there will be many people who are relieved, and perhaps quite a few who will also be disappointed. And I want you to know how sad I am to be giving up the best job in the world. But them's the breaks. I want to thank Carrie and our children and all the members of my family who've had to put up with so much for so long. I want to thank the peerless British civil service for all the help and support that you have given our police, our emergency services, and of course our fantastic NHS, who at critical moment helped to extend my own period in office, as well as our armed services and our agencies that are so admired around the world, and our indefatigable Conservative Party members and supporters whose selfless campaigning makes our democracy possible. I want to thank the wonderful staff here at Chequers, here at Number 10, and of course at Chequers, and our fantastic prop force detectives, the one group, by the way, who never leak. Above all, I want to thank you, the British public, for the immense privilege that you have given me. And I want you to know that from now on until the new Prime Minister is in place, your interests will be served and the government of the country will be carried on. Being Prime Minister is an education in itself. I've travelled to every part of the United Kingdom, and in addition to the beauty of our natural world, I found so many people possessed of such boundless British originality and so willing to tackle old problems in new ways that I know that even if things can sometimes seem dark now, our future together is golden. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
There we go. That was Boris Johnson, UK Prime Minister. He's formally announced that resignation there. It's 9:37 Australian Eastern Standard Time, 12:37 in London. So quite extraordinary there that we've just heard that that resignation there. I'm going to bring in Daniel Pizarro again for more coverage on this. He'll join us back in just a moment, pending technical issues. But he has been with us all night as we continue looking at this. We're looking at this live feed, so it may end in a moment. We just warn you, so we'll put up a standby slide. But we're still here. We're still continuing. Daniel, you watched that live stream there. I'm sure you heard some of what he said. he mentioned the herd mentality within the UK Conservatives, didn't he?
He did, and I was looking at, particularly as I mentioned a few minutes before, what he said and what he didn't say. In this case, it's very, very clear that that Boris Johnson was trying to talk about the achievements of his prime ministership, but interestingly, of course, when I was watching and listening to the speech, you heard the very audible boos and jeers from members of the public. This was not so. This was certainly not the type of way that Boris Johnson would want to see himself out, and I'm not surprised. And he did of course mention that there will be people who are delighted he's going and people who would be very sad that he's going, which reflects, of course, his very divisive nature. But it was very interesting, of course, that he didn't refer to any of the mass resignations or the scandals or anything like that. He only kind of hinted why people didn't like him, and that was quite a short speech. But but we do see that he wants to stay on, which will be, of course, to the detriment of a number of his ex-ministers who some do want him to go straight away. But he hasn't also given any indication about who he could possibly back as the new leader and therefore new prime minister.
Yeah, did you hear? I don't know if this was me, but did you hear jeering in the background?
Massively, absolutely. I had the boos and jeers and shouts. That's right. I was not surprised at all.
Yeah, I'm wondering where that's coming from, because I don't imagine the journalists were the ones jeering him there. But
no, that's coming from just from outside the gates to the right of Downing Street. So that's where the pub, as close as the public can get, without getting press or authorised access. So it was not surprising that there would be a crowd gathering near the public area closest to 10 Downing Street to see the Prime Minister, because you can physically see 10 Downing Street from the opposite side of the gates. So there was quite a few boos and jeers and shouts against him. There were a couple of applause when Boris Johnson emerged from 10 Downing Street, but he certainly was certainly trying to get as much matter of the fact, but he did look a bit weather beaten after, over the past 48 hours. He's certainly gone through so much, mostly of his own doing. So now but he has officially tendered his resignation now.
Yeah, it's all over there. There's no speculation
now.
now.
Much all over. So it is all over for him. So he will be staying on as Prime Minister until we, of course, have a new party leader elected and therefore new Prime Minister. But it's a spectacular downfall to Boris Johnson, who some people would describe as a very spectacular man. His rise to power and then as quickly gone. He has lasted officially as Prime Minister in the official capacity. He's now the interim Prime Minister now. Has lasted less than Theresa May's period.
And yeah, I remember hearing 2 nights ago that it was, or maybe it was even last night, he was 29 days away. But he's not lasting there, and we're not including the interim period there, might we add. We talked earlier, just quickly, about who could replace him. Is there anyone popular within the public, though, to replace him that would actually, help win? Because at this stage, as we both predicted, they would probably lose an election if it was held, right now.
That is a very good point. There's a number of names that have been spat about that could potentially be named.
Excuse me, nation.
I think it's not part of it's not necessarily can be popularity, but just simple recognition. Having recognition amongst the public is something that can at least give someone a bit of a boost, and then they can build on, and then they can build up their potential. Looking at like some people that have been seen that at least have a positive aspect. The Defence Secretary Ben Wallace has been suggested as a very possible popular candidate. He has been Secretary of Defence since Boris Johnson was Prime Minister. He's got a long track record in government. He's been around for many years, going all the way back to the late 90s. So he certainly would have he's got a more popular response from the public. Dominic Raab is another possibility. You've got even other people that could make, like Esther McVeigh, who's the former Work and Pension Secretary. Those kind of people. It depends on who you ask. So some of the louder people like Priti Patel, she's very unpopular with the public, so she might not be.
I think the Rwanda migrant thing or whatever it is.
Yes,
that's
the resettlement schedule.
That's it. Thanks for saving me there.
Yes. The other, another one that you'd look at is possibly Liz Truss. She is the Foreign Secretary, and she does have some popularity among Conservative Party members. However, she has been, of course, a little bit of. She's been a little bit problematic. She got absolutely ridiculed a couple of years ago when, at a party conference, she said, "We import too much." Butter or too much cheese into our country. That is a national disgrace, and she was absolutely ridiculed for that.
You're joking me. Really?
No, I'm not. It's all there on YouTube.
Oh goodness.
Another potential person who might be able to do really well would be Penny Mordaunt. She's currently the Minister of State for Trade Policy. She's someone who has also been Secretary of State for International Development. She was formerly Secretary of Defence. She's been someone who is suggested as a possibility. She's also a Brexiteer, so that might bode well with some of Boris Johnson's supporters. And there's the ex-Chancellor Rishi Sunak. He is also being suggested as a possibility. You have to remember that a lot of this depends on if it's just the general public or Conservative Party members, because a lot of it does vary around between who they would prefer or who the public would actually prefer. But I do know, so it can depend on the time and date and all that. But I do see Ben Wallace, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, maybe Dominic Raab. He is the Deputy Prime Minister after all. He's also the Justice Secretary. There's even Sajid Javid, the former Health Secretary. There's quite a few people we know who might be quite interested in that. But so far, the only person that has officially declared has been the Attorney General for England and Wales, Suella Braverman. She's the only person so far.
It's quite an extraordinary situation. I'm sure we'll get more to follow, but I guess while there is still a lot of uncertainty, I think the basics are clear. Boris Johnson will no longer be the UK Prime Minister in terms of his future in the Parliament, or that's still unclear, as we discussed earlier. Who knows, he could go in a by-election. But whatever happens, there's still, as I said, so much uncertainty, so much that we don't know. But what we do know is that he's gone as Prime Minister. He will stay as interim PM, but it follows more than 50 resignations. 59 was the last count. It was 54 when we got on air first at about 6:30 PM. So it's quite an extraordinary set of events. Now, I was discussing this with our political reporter Roman McKinnon earlier. Regarding Anthony Albanese, what he might say about this, because as we know, he met him face to face once. We can probably expect a statement tomorrow, can't we?
Yes, we can definitely expect reactions at the moment. It's now very early morning in the United States. We are going to expect a message from President Joe Biden, as well as the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. We'll also expect more announcements coming out from European leaders, and as well as all across Asia tomorrow morning. But we will expect that Prime Minister Anthony Albanese will make a formal statement regarding Boris Johnson over. Even though their tenures as both prime ministers has been extremely short, of course they've had dealings before in the past, but it's certainly quite an interesting last couple of hours for a prime minister that only yesterday said that I'm staying on. And,
I will not resign. Oh, I screenshotted it yesterday, that Reuters tweet. Boris Johnson, I will not resign. I will just add quickly, because we'll wrap this up now. It's approaching 9:50 p.m. Eastern. That's about 12:50 UK time in London. I wonder if you think there was any definitive moment that kind of saw him make this resignation decision. Yesterday, senior ministers didn't do it. More than 30 didn't do it. PMQs, that disaster, some might say, when people yelled out, "Bye, Boris," that didn't do it. But the announcement of a possible resignation came just after, I think it was his new Chancellor called on him to go. And we had heard from there that he was working on a resignation speech. Do you think that might have been the final moment? Or do you think he was really hanging on to the end, even with this, speech delayed by a good half hour?
It's very hard to determine at the moment because no doubt there's a lot of people who would be running around over the past couple of hours with phones and speaking in hushed sentences and all that. For me, the moment where I thought when the Prime Minister was I had lost all credibility, maybe he didn't realise himself, was during that Parliamentary Select Committee grilling by Labor MP Chris Bryant, where you saw Boris Johnson try to brush off what he knew about the now ex-Deputy Conservative Party Chief Whip misconduct discussions when he was appointed to that role. Looking at that, you saw him be incredibly flustered, stumbling over his words, trying to dismiss everything. For me, when I saw that going out live, I saw that was the end of Boris Johnson's prime ministership. For me, if he didn't realise it then when his new Chancellor, who had told him to resign, even though he had been appointed by the Prime Minister just hours before, told him to go, that must have been it.
Yeah, it's extraordinary, and an extraordinary day in UK political history, especially modern. So much in UK political history that's extraordinary. But as you say, so many prime ministers, and now we'll have a fourth Conservative Prime Minister since they came to power, a few years ago, last decade, I believe, 2010.
2010.
Yeah, 2010, and then since then we obviously had those early elections, so it was, I'm just thinking, there was the 2010 one when they got into power, there was the regular scheduled 2015 one, and then there was a 2017 one, wasn't there, with May?
That's correct. That's when Theresa May called an early election, and then then Boris Johnson called one in 2019. And
so the next one's scheduled for 2024, but I think an early election is absolutely on the table. I don't think it'll be smart to rule that out yet. An extraordinary few developments, and couple hours. We've been live for just over 3 hours now, speaking of people, you included, and it's just been extraordinary. Daniel Pizarro, journalist, thank you very much for your insight, thank you very much for your analysis tonight.
My pleasure.
Daniel Pizarro there, journalist, and we've been speaking to him all night. Some great analysis there from him. Look, we're going to wrap it up there, but let's just finally recap the developments we have, because this is something that kind of needs to be recapped. It's an extraordinary set of developments here. So yesterday we had a number of resignations follow two senior ones in the cabinet. Late last night at about 3 to 4 a.m, it was over 30 resignations. They kept piling up. There were joint statements where 5 resigned at one time. Overnight, more grew. There was a sacking that added to that resignation list. And then we had the new Chancellor, appointed 36 hours ago, call on Boris Johnson to resign. At the time we went live, when we heard Boris Johnson would quit, there were 53 resignations plus that one sacking. That's 54. By the time he spoke, 3 hours later, about 25 minutes ago, 59 resignations. That includes that sacking. 59 ministers, PPSs, junior ministers, cabinet, whatever, quitting or being sacked in one case because of what's happened with Boris Johnson. For him, recently, it seems to have been scandal after scandal. Partygate, the Sue Gray report that followed, and more recently, the Deputy Chief Whip of the Conservatives, called Pincher, accused of groping. He was accused of lying about that, Boris Johnson. So, he will no longer be the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He currently is still, as an interim. We will expect a replacement soon, and we'll have more that follows after that. Again, following more than 50 resignations. We've got more coverage of that right now on social media at 6NewsAU and at our website, 6newsau.com. Analysis, unbiased reports, and breaking developments. We'll continue to follow that up for you. Some might say it's a little dark age for the UK Conservative Party, with an early election now on the horizon instead of the scheduled one in 2024. But little dark age or not, that's where we'll leave our coverage for tonight. I'm Leonardo Puglisi in the Melbourne 6 News studio. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great night.